a team that creates a lot of chances. They score goals. They're playing the Senators, really weak team defensively. Well, especially in net, I should say. Very weak goaltending. And the Devils themselves just allow a ton of goals. They've blown 2-goal leads in like 3 straight games or something. So the over at 6.5, this has actually gotten shorter. I'll still take it at minus 125. I'm pretty tempted to take the Devils straight up here, but I'm not going to do that. Let's just play the over at 6.5 goals. I think the one thing you'll see from this game, the Devils get some points. The Senators score because the Devils just give up so many ridiculous chances, and this game gets to like 7 or 8 goals. Also like Timo Meier for an anytime goal scorer. He's on absolute fire. And I think that, the price for Timo Meier still hasn't come down quite enough. So if you're looking for an anytime goal prop, like going back to him, he's still plus 140 on DraftKings. I think that's very fair.
All right, Jeff, we got a minute to go in this show. Just want to ask you real quick, because you do a damn good job at handing out winners, and you're a big golf guy too. Actually, Batia has a 5-stroke lead. This kid does right now at the Valero Texas Open. He's been open about his issues with anxiety. He has a ticket to the Masters on the line if he wins this thing here, dude. Who do you like to kind of close it out? Do you like him to close it out this weekend here real quick?
I think he will close it out. Ashkan Batia is a really big talent. At the same time, if I was betting this, I would wait. But let's see if Rory can go on a run. Let's see if we can get this Batia number back up to like plus 300 at some point and, go with him. But I wouldn't really invest too much in any of the chasers. Rory at plus 600, interesting, but I'd wait for a bigger number on Batia, quite frankly.
Yeah, you have some bigger names who are using this as a really big tune-up ahead to Masters Week, which on this show tomorrow, we're going to dive deeper into some Masters bets with you and Matt Brown of VSiN on the Sweat. For now, we got to take a 240-second break. Buckle up. We got college basketball Final Four bets with 2 very special guests in studio. We're handing the keys over to Julian Edlow and company next.
Tax Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. This tax season, you get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data and a new Samsung Galaxy A15 for just $99. So you can give your janky phone to your kid. Yeah! Good talk.
Switch to Straight Talk for plans starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Device off rents $414.24. In-store activation on single Silver Unlimited plan or higher required. Family plan discount with 4 lines all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
The good folks at Wendy's have a revolutionary new product for you. Introducing the new Orange Dreamsicle Frosty. It's like a time machine that takes you all the way back to now, the year 2024. It's the classic creamy, orangey flavor you remember. Dare I say, it's new-timey. It's the flavor you grew up with, just all grown up. Head over to your local Wendy's establishment and get yours while supplies last. The new Orange Dreamsicle Frosty. Here for the now, for now.
Limited time only. Participating Wendy's.
If you didn't catch the handle, here's what you missed.
Listen, I think
Keyboard Cat, Hamilton the Pug, and Toast Meets World. These are some of the internet's most beloved pets. And they all have one thing in common. Their stories started in a shelter. Start your story. Adopt a dog or cat today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Training that pet to play the keyboard, that's optional. Start a story. Adopt a shelter or rescue pet today. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Okay, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. So mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. Socks going first, then shoes, right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops. The rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
How's it going? I'm having a stroke. Are you going to shake my hand? I'm having a stroke. Wow, you're not even moving your arm. I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear. Look for FAST. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911 immediately. Know the sudden signs. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The storks are bringing me a baby brother! We can do this together!
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I know.
You don't? Oh man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No. Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this!
You will rock this! To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the right seat.
Cool. Very cool.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Western Reserve Radio is the Valley's online source for sports talk and local live events. Tune in and be a part of their live weekly shows, as well as all of the hard-hitting action of Youngstown Phantoms hockey, high school football, and the GDFL. Find them at westernreserveradio.com. Tune in and the Live 365 app to be a part of the area's sports conversation. Be sure to visit them on Facebook at Western Reserve Radio and on Twitter at WR_radio.
Youngstown, Warren, and Salem's local and national sports talk can be found on TuneIn and the Live 365 app at Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio, take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier that makes sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the right seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's time to kick back and listen to the sports page with your host, Pat Lucia, right here on Western Reserve Radio. You can call the show at 330-707-4202 and tell everyone what's on your mind in the wonderful world of sports. Now, here's your host, Pat Lucia.
Saturday morning sports page is back. Pat Lucia. I've got Bob Gessler filling in for Dave Clark. Congratulations, you're on our show.
I'm on everything else in this studio.
That's right.
So might as well be on yours.
Bob, I congratulate him. He's on our show. Filling in for Dave Clark out. And I'm Pat Lucia, 330-707-4202. That is the phone to get in on the Saturday morning sports page on Western Reserve Radio. And we do it here every Saturday morning from 9 to 11. A lot going on in the world of sports. I know we were out last week, Easter weekend. Got interesting game last night. We'll get to the ladies basketball. Controversial call at the end of the game pretty much cost UConn the chance of maybe winning the game. But Iowa will move on. They will play the undefeated South Carolina Gamecocks, and that ought to be a great game. Caitlin Clark does move on. Now, obviously, there's the people saying that Iowa got the call because the conspiracy theory folks are saying, hey, they wanted Caitlin Clark in that final for the TV ratings. That never happened before. We have the men's basketball, though, today. Two good games. So we're gonna look at that Final Four. We've got North Carolina State. Oh, and just if people are wondering, they're not on CBS. These are on TBS. So they're not on network TV. They're on cable TV so TBS. The first game tips off at 6:09. It's North Carolina State taking on Purdue, the number one ranked Purdue. North Carolina State is the 11th seed, and is Jim Valvano could be involved. There's the spirit of Jim Valvano could he influence the game and get North Carolina State to another title like he did back in 1983, 41 years ago. The next game, 8:49, will be the Alabama taking on UConn. Again, these are on T as in Tom, TBS. So we've got these two games on tonight. Last night's game, for those wondering that did not know, the favorite South Carolina did beat North Carolina State 78-59. Good game for a half, and then South Carolina, being obviously the better team, took over the ball or in the game in the second half and walked away with the game 78-59. But the game with the controversy, which obviously you're going to always have something, Iowa beat UConn last night 71-69. And for those that did not watch, this is a very good game because Connecticut was up kind of in the first half, dominating Iowa, but it was close. And then Iowa took over the second half and was up. Very close game. Finally, at the end of the game, it looks like Iowa was going to probably win this game. But they turned the ball over twice, basically giving UConn gets two possessions. They score. Now they move it to 71-69, and then Connecticut's got the ball. Iowa turns it over. So UConn's got the ball with about 10 seconds left, and sure enough, they go in, they're running the play, and all of a sudden there's a whistle, and the referees call a moving screen on UConn, foul, Iowa ball. Iowa ultimately, Caitlin Clark goes to the line, makes one shot, misses the other, but Iowa got the rebound off the missed shot. They run out the clock, 10 seconds is gone. Iowa wins 71-69. This morning, there's some outrage out there that's saying the referee should have never, ever, ever called the moving screen. They were letting that play go. In fact, the coach for UConn, Gino Orderama, said basically, hey, they called that on us 3 or 4 times during the game, and they never called it on Iowa. Now they wait again, and they call it right when we had the chance to win the game. This brings back, for those folks, Bob will relate, the Super Bowl, a Super Bowl ago with the Chiefs and the Eagles. They called the holding on the Eagles at the end of the game, giving Kansas City the first down. Kansas City basically runs out the clock, kicks the field goal, wins the game. Again, referee's call basically will determine an outcome of a game. We've seen this happen many, many times before, and we're probably going to see it many, many more times moving forward. But I understand. Again, Caitlin Clark does move to the finals. She had wasn't one of her better games, but she had a lot of assists. I'll get her numbers in front of me here in a bit. She only had 21 points for her, but I think I know she had double digits on the assist end. So she had a great game from that aspect. But the point is, why is it, referees swallow the whistle, people?
Yeah. And I can tell you it's happened many a times in my life. And it's very upsetting because it shouldn't be that way. Let them play, especially when there's seconds to go. How do you make that call? And you talked about the past with Kansas City. That's happened a year before that when they were going down and they were playing Cleveland. Cleveland gets hit on the 1 foot line, gets a spear, completely the defender hits him. He fumbles it through the end zone. Okay, it's a touchback. Later on in a 4:00 game, it happens in Green Bay. They did frame by frame. It was the exact same hit and how they walked out, yet they gave the call to Green Bay, which ends up going to the championship game. That's what drove me crazy, because how do you not? Because they wanted Kansas City in. Who wants Cleveland in? And that's exactly what happened. And I've seen it over the years. Again, it with the Eagles. I mean, it's just when you're down that to the last, how do you do that? You're taking away things. But as we discussed before we got on, ratings, money, they're going to watch. Everybody's watching Caitlin Clark. And that's exactly what it is.
Well, Caitlin Clark and Iowa beat earlier in the week. I believe it was the Monday night game over LSU. They beat LSU. And I believe that rating was it was the highest rated basketball game on ESPN, I believe, in their history. Over 12.5 million people watched that game, and it peaked at 16 million. Now, this is, again, usually women's basketball does not draw. However, Caitlin Clark now has brought women's basketball front and center, and the interest has just shot up. And in essence, people are eyes on the set. We talk about this time and time again on the show, where I don't care when it all shakes out, when you're looking at millions and billions of dollars in TV rights exchanging hands, ratings are dire. They want ratings. The higher the ratings, the more money. It doesn't even matter really who's playing. It's who's drawing the ratings. In a way, people have the power to either kind of make or break. If they don't turn on their set or they don't stream it. Now, granted, the problem is streaming isn't picked up where it is otherwise. But if you watch your YouTube TV, et cetera, on that, it gets picked up. But the point is, ratings drive everything here, people. And right now, Caitlin Clark is, in essence, driving the ratings boat for women's basketball. In fact, you can make an argument. There are a lot of people out there that don't even they don't even know the men's game as much as they know the women's game because of Caitlin Clark. She's basically really she's almost driving college basketball to a whole different level.
Yeah, and the other thing is when she broke Pistol Pete's record, right, and they were comparing her and this and that, there was a lot of people that were very upset with that because, and I'm one of them, Pistol Pete, I watched him. He was the most amazing basketball player. And then, of course, Jordan came in and those guys and stuff. But Pistol Pete, no shot clock, no three-point line. I mean, what he did on a regular court back in the day without all the rules that they have now, he was incredible. And that's the sad thing of what's happening now. You can't compare somebody who's got more advantage to somebody like that. And that goes to every sport. You got football. It's a whole different, back then the rules were changed. Everything now is towards the offense, whether it's girls basketball, men's basketball, any of that, it all points to we got to have these big scores. We got to have these 38 to 45 to 50, whatever in football. Otherwise, it's no good of game. A couple years ago when a score, and I don't recall who was playing, it was a real low-scoring Super Bowl. People are calling me and goes, well, boy, that was a horrible Super Bowl. I go, That was one of the greatest Super Bowls played because you guys want the points. As a coach, we saw what was going on. I mean, it was amazing. Same thing with the basketball now. They talk about LeBron James and this great player. I'll never take anything from any of these players, but put him with Bill Laimbeer. Put him up against Wilt Chamberlain and some of them old guys that when you're coming down the line, they will take your head off. Larry Bird's another one. I mean, they'll beat you up. They're not going to stand there and just watch you shoot and drive the lane. It's a whole different game.
Yeah, that's where a lot of I remember years ago they were interviewing Willis Freed, the late Willis Freed, rest in peace, passed back in 2023. New York Knicks center, went on to coach the Nets and was a GM. They were interviewing Willis Freed, and he said, I don't like to compare, like they were asking him questions about players and error, like this player compared to this player and different errors. And Reed was very, very nonchalant, very to the point, said, I don't really like to compare different errors with the players. It's just a lot of factors involved with players of different errors. The game is different. The players are different. The game was played differently when I played versus this day. And, just the players today are just much more athletic than they were back in the 50s, 60s, and even into the 70s, because if you watch a game today, the center is kind of is almost a non-entity in the NBA. Back obviously in the 60s, 70s, and then you get 80s, 90s, and even with Shaquille O'Neal, the centers were a real dominant part of the game, and you're getting into the 2000s. But it seemed like after Shaq and then Duncan kind of retired, the centers have obviously now it's just the game is more tailor-made to a wing and the guards and the three-point shooting. And this game, especially the NBA game, if you try to watch an NBA game and you used to watch the game where it was played back in the 60s and the 70s like me, you're just taken back because of the three-pointers. These guys, I mean, Larry Bird and Magic played in the 80s, getting into the 90s, even Jordan, but they weren't so reliant on the three-pointer. Stephen Curry brought the three-pointer into the game, and he's put a whole different look to the game. But the three-point play now is really, to one point, the dominant part of the game, which is just the way the game is now played. Where back, you go back to Maravich and go back to the 60s and the 70s, they didn't have the three-pointer in the NBA, but the ABA had the three-point, but the NBA did not. So it just that I think the first year for the three-point play might have been in 1980, I believe. I'll have to look it up. But the point is, the game now, though, is really relying on the three-pointer. And you just see these guys launching up three after three after three. And I guess I don't particularly like the game as much because I remember as a kid growing up watching the New York Knicks play, the 70 Knicks. I was 14 back then when they won the title. They really played team basketball. And they didn't have great they didn't have great athletes on the team. And back then there weren't a lot of great athletes, but they passed the ball, they ran plays, pick and roll, and they developed shots. It was just a whole different game then than it is today.
And again, more physicality.
Oh, much more.
I tell
much more.
And I tell the story. Back in the day when I coached and was around, and I don't mean to change the subject about sports because I'm a football coach.
But same thing with football.
Yeah, I watched these Cheney teams from back in the 60s, 70s, and watching Fitch and Cheney playing everything, and the game of football and the kids of today. And I will tell them, you're not tough, you're not mean enough, and you're not tough. And I see that, and that is no disrespect, but it was different back then. These guys, even back in, a basketball back in the day, I mean, you coming down that lane, they're going to take your head off. They're not going to stand there when a ball goes to the rim. Watch any game. Watch what happens. The offensive team that shoots the ball, everybody leaves. All you see is 4 or 5, different jerseys, the other team's jerseys, stand there waiting for the ball to come off the rim. Back in the day, it was a war. I mean, everybody was underneath there. Correct me if I'm wrong, because they say, I'm gonna fight for that. That's mine. I want to get that second shot. Everybody peels back now, and I can't understand it. I see it more and more and more. It drives me crazy. But this is what they want. They want the points. They want the 116s, 115s. Because they think that's exciting. To me, that's boring. As you say, the 3-point line, if you're good, Caitlin Clark, she's standing there all day just hitting them, time after time. Okay, great for her, and you win games and stuff, but to me, I don't think that's exciting. I just don't. It's not me.
Well, I'll give one thing to her that I see. She can shoot the 3, but she's also great in passing the ball. I like the way she distributes the ball, and she's very non-selfish.
Yeah.
And she won the game over LSU. She took that game and controlled it scoring-wise, but also with assists. But then last night, being a great player that she was, she didn't quite have the shot down, but the assists and distributing the ball last night, again, were just totally out of the world. So, she is a great player. She's a great distributor of the ball. She passes, she shoots, but she does, which is great to watch her play. She just is not somebody that comes down and launching up threes. But she could also, but when she's hitting the 3 and then she's distributing the ball, that Iowa team is almost unbeatable. When she's got it all clicking. Last night was a tough game with Connecticut, but you knew it was going to be with Gino Auriemma, the coach. He's a great coach, and you knew it was just going to be, and it was. That game, and I can't wait to get, I wonder what the TV rating was last night off that game. I bet it was, well, again, they had a great rating Monday night versus LSU, but that had Angel Reese, and they kind of had that rival going back and forth.
Yeah, that's why that LSU game was the most, because remember last year, Angel Reese is in her face going, look at me, look what I got, talking trash. And I believe that was her gig. I'm going to show you I'm a better player. And she proved it. It did. And class, she didn't go over a rubber nose in it. That was the difference. No. I just, as much as I like LSU, I don't like that stuff. I don't like the showboating. Was very against what happened before the game. I was very upset. There's a lot of people talked about that. The coach tried to come out and say, we just didn't know. And I'm talking about the national anthem. And I was very, very upset about that, because I'm having a stepfather who was in the Navy, and I know, and I don't know about your life, Pat, but I respect people that give me the right to do what I do, whether it's military, our own police. That's why I respect our man Jim Craven as much as I do, because I couldn't do what he does. And I'm getting the dirty look now.
Yeah, Craven.
But these are guys that I do look up to, because they do. For years, they put their life on the line for us, so we're able to do what we do. And that's how I feel. And maybe some people think that I'm off the mark.
Well, the whole thing with I know they got into that whole national anthem thing, and they didn't the LSU didn't come out for the national anthem. I guess the only thing that I get with this and how I look at that is, like with Kaepernick and everybody, I know he kneeled and did all that. The thing that basically I always keep in mind is I try to say, look, obviously respect the flag, our soldiers, all our military men and women put their lives on our line so we have freedom. I guess the thing is, I always kind of look at it as, I go to a football game. I don't want politics. I just want to go to a game. David Stern, people may forget this. David Stern put a rule in the late 80s, early 90s, because they were, I guess, one player, and the name escapes me. I think it was Jackson. Last name, I have to look it up. But the point is, he wouldn't stand for the national anthem. Anyways, David Stern, right and a day later put a rule in. All players need to stand during the national anthem, period. That's it. Case closed. No exceptions. We're paying you. You're getting a salary. You represent the NBA.
Yes.
Therefore, and that gets back to, not to get off the tangent, but that just gets back to you're working for a company. What you do on your private time is your business.
Yeah.
But while you're in the term of the employment with that company, you're working for that company, you have to abide by their rules. That's all it's
and you're right. And that's anywhere.
Right, that's anywhere. And that's what I would just go back to, that saying, if the NFL put a rule in that said, all players need to stand during the national anthem, like Stern did back, and the NBA still has it in there today. It's still in there, but the whole point, actually, David Stern had them wearing suits on the sideline because he actually said, "We're paying you. You're going to represent our league. You're going to look very professional." So they either got an allowance. They had to all dress up. If they weren't playing, they had to wear suits, because David Stern believed that since you are representing the NBA, you have to represent we're paying you to represent us.
Yeah. Well, in football, what they did was they left it up to the owners, and then the owners took care of their teams, which that was a little bit lax than that. But there was a lot of them that said, kneel down, you're gone.
Right. Yeah.
And I agree. Right. I'm sorry.
That's where, at least in a way, I gave Stern a lot of credit.
Right.
Because Stern basically said, we're doing it this way. It's a league rule. We're not going to have the players not stand and at least stand for the flag. Now, the one player would turn his back to the flag, but as long as he stood, he was okay. But the whole point of it is, Stern did not want the players doing that. And again, that was the commissioner, and that still lies today. And I just go back to, your fans are showing up. Like, here's an example. Like, I know this is off a little, but like Buffalo Bills, like their new stadium is going to be built. You're thinking, oh, this is great. However, the Buffalo Bills seat license, new license, has gone through the roof. Ticket holders will have to pay the new PSLs on the new stadium. And the new stadium, I believe, is supposed to be like only 60,000 seats, because I think the current one is seats in the neighborhood of 85,000. So they're going to actually be less. But they were just talking about the seat license being new, the new seat license. And they were talking about up to $50,000 for club seats. Like if you have club seats and you're a ticket holder, you will basically have to pay. You could pay. Bills fans have a major sticker shock with PSLs up to $50,000 for club seats. So if you own a club seat in Buffalo, your PSL, and that's not the price. See,
that's not the ticket. That's just the opportunity to buy it.
Yes. To back up a little, it's called the personal seat license. And it is basically the right to own the seat. You're paying the right to own it, or I guess the right to buy the ticket to sit there.
Yeah, you're renting it.
You're renting, so you're actually paying that fee. It's a one-time fee. And so you have to go ahead and pay that to get your seat. Enable you to buy that seat for the game. So this is, a lot of people now are a little outraged. A little probably is understatement.
Yeah.
Because now they're going to be paying $50,000 or somewhere up to $50,000, depending on your seat.
Sure.
To have the season ticket. And, I guess that's the whole problem is, I know it's money making, and we got into this conversation, Dave Clark and I, a lot with what they're doing with streaming and how they're putting it on like the streaming services that you have to pay for, like this year's playoff game in 2024 is going to be on Amazon Prime. So if you want to watch the playoff game, you have to have Amazon Prime to watch it.
Yeah, thank God we have, because my girl is Carol Myers is a member.
Right.
So it has it, so we go right on it, and it's not a problem. Right. I just have a problem with that, because what the leagues have done, they're paying these guys such big money, and when these stations, whatever you want to call them, they're going to go in and say, we're going to pay X amount of dollars, which is just massive. Right. So they don't have to rely on ticket sales in this, because they're getting it through the TV contracts and through Amazon. And what was the other one? There was the other one too. Peacock. That's another one. People were upset, very, very upset with that, and I don't blame them.
And that's what was basically what caused a lot of problems this past year. And here is the other problem is with Peacock is the NFL lost probably about 15 million viewers, because the difference between the Detroit game compared to the Kansas City game, when Detroit was playing their playoff game that weekend, I think versus Tampa Bay, anyway, that game, Detroit game was on TV. That was on network TV. That drew a bigger rating, much bigger rating than the Peacock game, like about 15 to 20 million more. So how much did the owners really make on the streaming compared to what they would have made on the ratings?
Right.
Okay. Saturday morning sports page, Pat Lucia and Bob Gessler. Saturday morning sports page will be right back after.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club Fitting Center, and an Odyssey Fitting Studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
Meet Josh.
Hi, everybody.
Josh is a high school basketball player, solid shooter, great teammate.
Hey, don't forget my tenacious D.
And he's my son.
Oh.
So, what does Josh do to be the best basketball player he can be?
I play tennis.
Studies show that student athletes here in Ohio who play more than one high school sport are more likely to excel. Tennis does more than improve Josh's conditioning. It gives him a fresh competitive outlet, reduces the risk of injury by cross-training, and introduces him to different coaching techniques and new friends.
Don't get me wrong, hoops are my first love. Tennis just gives me a little break.
So when the new season begins, Josh isn't burned out on basketball. He's eager to play. And you can see the difference in his game.
This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Saturday morning sports page back. Bob Gessler joining me this morning, filling in for Dave Clark. 330-707-4202. Chris Jackson was the player, formerly known as Chris Wayne Jackson. He came out of LSU. He did change his name to Mahmoud Abdul Rahif, and he was the player that did not stand for the national anthem in the NBA, and that caused David Stern to enforce the rule, I guess, if you want to say, that all NBA players need to stand for the national anthem. That's just a footnote that if wondering what, and I didn't realize, maybe you forgot, I just remember when Stern did it, and then that was kind of brought up again, and this was back in 90, 91. So that was an old long time ago. That was always over 30 years ago when Stern put that, but the rule is still into effect today in the NBA. So that's what you have there. But, getting back on, I did want to throw this out, what happened this week. Stephon Diggs was traded to the Houston Texans from the Buffalo Bills. And what Houston did is they basically went ahead and redid his contract. And what they did, Stephon Diggs had a contract that ran through 2027. That will not be the case. What Houston did is they increased his only deal to $8.5 million, handing him $22 million for this year. And then he's out of the rest of those years. They're out of those rest of the years. Right. This is going to basically what they did in a nutshell is they made it a 1-year contract. They basically say, okay, look, we're going to go ahead and give you $8.5 million on to what you were making, giving you a number of now $22 million. You are now, after this year, Stephon Diggs is a free agent. Right. So he could sign with anybody and go anywhere he wants. So realistically, what he hasn't just has done is he will become a free agent in 2025 and he can sign anywhere he wants. Houston will pay him $22 million a year. I'm assuming this is all guaranteed $22 million right here. 1-year deal. And then we'll see what you do. If and it kind of makes a lot of sense because that way Houston go ahead and will have him for the 1 year. After that, if they want him, they can negotiate a new deal, right? Or he's free to go anywhere he wants to, but he will have 1 year in Houston, getting $22 million.
And Buffalo's washes their hands.
Yeah, Buffalo. Only thing Buffalo got whacked with is they got hit with a pretty good cap hit. I believe the cap hit. With Stephon Diggs was over $30 million. So Buffalo has a dead cap hit, and I'll get that number, but I heard that today, is the contract, the hit that Buffalo took for the dead cap hit. And that's what they were talking about a lot is, why did Buffalo trade him? Because they had signed to the deal was originally $72 million is what he signed to. But they took a dead cap hit of $22 million. Is what they were talking about today. Is the dead cap hit was pretty significant. So Buffalo's going to have to deal with basically the dead cap. Yeah, they adjusted it, but they were talking about this earlier and said that the dead cap hit he had was somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million. That's why we get into the conversation with Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Brown fans. And I have a couple good friends that are Cleveland Browns fan, and one keeps wanting to get rid of Watson. And I said, you cannot get rid of Deshaun Watson. He will be a Cleveland Brown for at least 3 more years because the dead cap hit, it's almost to the point with Deshaun Watson, you could almost not field the team because of the dead cap hit you would take on his contract.
Yeah, I just, it's funny. We're talking about 30 million, this million, that million.
Yeah.
Who would have thought back in 1960 that these guys are making, $12,000, right. 50s, and they're going to make this kind of money? And this is what I have a problem as a single guy that doesn't have a lot of money. I mean, I'm living comfortably. How do I won't pay that kind of money for a ticket. Tickets are outrageous to go see. I got to pay for all this money. Then if you own a seat, pay that kind of money to go watch a millionaire play a game. I have a problem with that, and I'll watch it all day on TV. You'll never see me at a stadium unless somebody gives me a ticket.
Well, here's the problem you remotely have here. Couple things. Oh, just to Deshaun Watson, if you were wondering, anybody wondering if Cleveland decides they would want to get rid of Deshaun Watson this year, the dead cap hit is $200 million.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They can't. And then next year, it's $136 million. 2026, it gets down to $72 million. So they've got Deshaun Watson 3 more years. Finally, the last year in 2027, the dead cap would only be $8.9 million. So for the sake of this discussion, he's pretty much there locked in for at least 2 years. The $72 million cap hit was comparable to what Denver took when they got rid of Russell Wilson. They took a brutal cap hit. But it's the same thing with Buffalo. They just took, I believe the cap hit they took with Stephon Diggs was somewhere in the neighborhood of in the $30 million range. But tie it back to what you said. This past week, Kansas City put I guess it was like a levy on the ballot. And it was like an additional tax where if they pass it, Kansas City Royals were going to build a brand new stadium in downtown Kansas City. And then the Kansas City Chiefs were going to go ahead and put about $400 million of renovations into that Arrowhead Stadium, which has been there. The first year it opened was 1972. So I believe that is the oldest stadium. That referendum went down quite soundly. Now, Kansas City Royals, the baseball team, said, I believe their lease is up in 2028. And they basically said, well, we're not playing a game past 2028. So I don't know I don't know if does that mean they're going to move? Where are they going to go? Or they're going to look, or now that's a few years away. It's easy to say it now. And then there was discussion, rumor had it, that the Dallas mayor said to the Kansas City Chiefs, move down, you can move back to Dallas. That's where you started.
Yeah.
They played 3 years in Dallas under the old AFL, and back in 60 to 62, they were the Dallas Texans, and they moved to Kansas City. And the first year in Kansas City was 1963.
Here's what kills me. This is right off the bat. So you want a new stadium. Where do you get the money? Taxpayers. Then you turn around and you do the seat licensing. Where you get the money? Taxpayers. Okay, you're not giving them anything. Now they have to pay for their ticket. This is what I don't understand how this is playing out, because the amount of money that just your everyday Joe, and remember when that tax goes through, whether you're making $25,000 a year, or whether you're making $300,000 a year, that tax is coming out of your pocket to pay for a bunch of millionaires to play a sports game and to back them. I love my Browns, love everything about it, but when it gets to this point over money, they're going to price themselves out eventually, because there's nobody that's going to be able to afford it unless everything's going to be corporate. And that's why you see more and more skyboxes at different stadiums. I went last year to a Notre Dame game. I didn't see the renovations. All it are all the boxes that they put up around and put a new press box on. But all these corporate boxes are up there because of the amount of money that they were losing. And I understand it. And again, college is a little bit different than pros, but again, you're feeding to the corporate people when it was the everyday Joe that wants to go to these games and want to see it, but you're going to price us out. And I could say to myself, would I love to go? My gosh, it's amazing going up there. I can't afford that. If myself and my girl went up there, by the time you pay for tickets, parking, and if you even think about getting anything to drink other than water, which is probably $7 for a bottle, you got $200-300 wrapped up, if not even more. You can look at it taking a $500. So how does a family who want to bring their kids up, who are interested in it, a family of 4, go up there? You're talking about $1,000 or better for a family of 4 to go up there and actually enjoy themselves. And I disagree with it. I just won't.
I mean, to kind of give you a rough idea, getting back to this, I guess it was considered a referendum. I'm not sure exactly how they, it was a tax, I guess, if you want to call it. It was a tax that the way it was going to go is it was going to allow Kansas City Royals to build a ballpark immediately south of downtown, freeway loop in the East Crossroads, and major renovation for Arrowhead Stadium Chiefs. The ballot failed 58-42, so it was
pretty good.
Pretty sound, 60, almost 60-40, telling the voters, basically telling you, no, we don't want an additional tax, and I don't want to get into the whole inflation.
It's what it is.
That is what it is. People make a decision, and this was not going to happen. So, in essence, now what you have is, there's discussion. Kansas City Royals have basically said it. I mean, they are not going to stay around. They said they're going to look to maybe move. I don't know if that's going to happen. All I know is the fans said no, but it gets back to what Bob's saying here with fans is you watch millionaires play, and, you have to pay a seat license. You have to pay to park your car. You pay a lot of money to just go to a game. If you're a family of 4, so you bring your spouse or your significant other and your 2 children, say, the typical family 4, after you buy the tickets and the concessions and park your car, and, if one of your children or your spouse wants a souvenir, and you buy a shirt or something for the kids or a hat, you're probably, if the tickets are probably $200 a pop, you end up paying for the concession and the parking. You're into this for about $1,000 easy. And then you have your time invested into it, where you're leaving an hour. You have about 6 to 7 hours tied in to a day at the game. And then, then if the other thing is, if you get seats and you're behind obnoxious drunk fans, then you're dealing with that part of it. So again, I know I throw all this out at everybody, but when then you come to the same family of 4 and you say you get over to the father and the mother, maybe the kids can't vote, but, oh, by the way, we want new renovations to the stadium. And we, or the baseball, they want to build a brand new stadium in downtown Kansas City. And, we're going to put this tax increase on the ballot. You're thinking, like, yeah, okay. So now I'm going to pay a tax increase. And if I go back to a game, I'm going to, continue to pay. And then now you're asking the people of Buffalo for seat license money, which is astronomical. And again, this is Buffalo, a hardworking, kind of a middle-class town. And you're wanting people to pony up a lot of money just for a football game. And then, obviously, again, you get back to the parking, the time invested, the price of the ticket, the food, the concessions. You throw all that at somebody. And like you said, I'll give you an example. Like you said, a bottle of water. I went to Ohio State game. They played Notre Dame 2 years ago. I went to a game. A friend of mine actually had the tickets, so I didn't have to pay for the ticket because he had them. But the point is, we go down and I'm driving. I'm the designated driver, so I'm just drinking water, and I'm paying $10 a bottle of water.
How about that?
In the stadium. And, he had a beer or two. He didn't drink that much because the beers were anywhere between 10 to 15 a pop. So, but you know what? I'll tell you this much is when we were at the game, the people, we were sitting, we had to stand because the people, we were like at an aisle where the people were coming up and down.
Yeah.
So you could watch the game, you had to stand. I've never seen so many people going up and down the stairs to get beers.
Oh, it's
and
crazy.
Back and forth. They're making a lot of money. I mean, they're paying a lot of money for, basically beer, but they're buying it. And that was the thing that I was a little bit amazed, is the fact that the price of the concession in beer did not, and wine, they had beer, wine, that did not deter people from spending the money and buying the product. And even like the popcorn. This is all $10, $8, $12. But the point is, people are basically buying the product and they're paying. And the better, or the other part, anybody ever going to an event, like we went to a basketball game in St. John Arena, they don't take money.
Everything's on a card.
Credit card only. You cannot, they do not take money. I don't think they took money at the football. I know at the basketball game I went to, this is a couple years ago, they played Indiana, Ohio State played Indiana, and we were at the game, and my one friend's brother, I don't think he had credit. He didn't bring any credit cards with him. So we were like, okay, he had money and they wouldn't take it. So we were like, okay, wait, I used my credit card, but I wanted to get a bottle of water, and I went to pay it, and the lady goes, "We don't take any money. I can't pay you. No cash." She said that in a way, and it makes sense. There's nobody stealing. Like there's no employee theft.
Right.
At the end of the day, and it made a lot of sense. Because bottom line, she said that. A nice young lady said to me, I go, you don't know. She goes, for one thing, is it totally takes out, there's no cash here. You got to pay with a credit card, and they know, they've got credit. And when they do the inventory, it all matches up, and you don't have any issues with balancing, quote, the check or the cash.
Yeah.
Because there's no cash.
The last time I was at a Browns game, that happened to me. And this was years ago. And I'm watching these people drink these beers. And I was just in my section. And I turned to one of my assistant coaches and I said, I just want one day of the beer sales for this football game would be probably twice as much as I make
easy
in a year.
Easy.
Because it's one right after another, and these guys with stacks of beers. What's the stadium where they stack all the beer can or the beer glasses?
Cups.
The cups, the snake. Now think about how many cups it takes to go from the floor all the way up to the stadium top. Just in that section. That is absolutely insane to me. I mean, you're talking probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in one game, just in beer and wine sales and cools.
Well, do it this way. For the sake of this discussion, say, okay, you have 100,000 people at a game. Just let's go out on a stretch and say, okay, you have 100,000, you figure 2 beers per person.
Yeah.
And that's for people like me that don't drink.
Right.
But the guy behind me,
drinking 5, 6,
who drinks 3 or 4, the girl or the ladies,
they're worse.
Yes, they're drinking 5 or 6. Because believe me, we saw people coming up and down the aisle, going to the seats. We had to stand, and there were people, young kids, men, women, all ages, carrying 2, 3 beers.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, they were going for somewhere like $12 to $15 a beer
at least.
So. Okay, so if you want to say, just for the discussion, you have 100,000 people, say 2 beers per people. You start saying, okay, so that's 100,000 times 2, that's 200. Say they sell about, and this is probably low.
Oh, yeah.
They sell like 200,000 beer, and that's not any food. That's not the pizza.
That's just the beer.
That's just the beer. That's not the waters. I mean, if you want to say, well, take a step back and just don't say beer, but say, I had a couple. It was a hot night. I drank a couple waters, which was
$20.
They were right. I was $20, and I got a popcorn, which was $8.
Yeah.
And I was like into it for like a couple, it was like $30-$40 for that. But the point on it is this: when you start breaking this down to take 100,000 and say, if you want to ballpark how much per, how much each purchase is going to spend, and you calculate all this out, you could probably make an argument or to say for 100,000, I will probably say each individual will spend $100.
Yeah.
Between, and not even the seats, just parking, throw parking in, or just the drinks and the food. You're figuring, and how much is going to price? Say $100. So if you take $100 times 100,000,
sure.
And that's one
a lot
game.
Of money.
That's
one game.
One game.
And then I'm going to throw another little twist in. How many times do you go to a game and you're there early? So in the parking lot, if you don't find food, you're going to go into town and grab dinner, which is going to cost you another family of four, $100.
I'll give you good point. I'll give you an example. We went early. There's a band that plays there out of the stadium.
Yes.
And that you can go watch the band, but they're selling sandwiches and beers there.
Yeah.
So if I decide to get down there, I want to buy a sandwich and a beer. You're not saying those beers were more money. The outside beers and the sandwiches were comparable to what's inside.
Right.
So if you think, okay, you're not saving. The point is, if you go earlier and the more you eat and the more you drink, you're just going to pay a lot more money.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, when you really break it down, that's what, is a crazy amount of business with college football, but even the NFL.
Right.
You go in and the concessions that's why what always cracks me up, they always talk about there's too many baseball games, too many NBA games. They play 82 NBA games. They play 162 baseball games. And that basically means there's 41 home games in NBA, and there's basically 81 games for baseball. And now they've football, they've just made it 17-3. They're going to go to 18-2 as far as football. But the whole point of this is, especially in those other sports, with people, they need to cut down these seasons in baseball and NBA. They play way too many games. Everybody agrees to that. However, that's never going to happen. And I can use the word never, and I usually don't like to ever say never, but because of the money involved.
It's all about the money. You're
yes. Right. These NBA owners are never going to say, let's have less games.
Okay, what
because that means less money for me. And then, then it would also go back to the players. And the players whine and don't play because they have load management now.
Sure.
But the players are never going to play less. Now, they may play less games because they're load managing, but they're never going to cut down the amount of games is because then they have to take a pay cut.
Okay. In about Cleveland's basketball arena, what does it hold?
I think that holds close to 20,000.
Okay, 20,000. What's the Browns Stadium hold?
I think the Browns is probably holding somewhere in the neighborhood. Is it close to 75 or 80? Yeah.
Okay. We'll just.
I think it is 70.
Okay, we're going to say 70. They'll fill that stadium if you got a good team. They're going to fill that stadium. So think about it. They're playing 17 games, 70,000 people. It takes a basketball arena to play 3 games to 1 of a Browns game, and I think they're looking at that revenue side of it. And I believe that because now I'm playing 3 games at 20,000. Okay. All right. Now that's 70,000. Okay. Cleveland's playing 17 games, times that by 3. And you're right exactly with basketball players.
When you break it down.
So the revenues are the same per year because of the amount of people paying. Because at the arenas, in basketball, they're usually sellouts because they're such hard to get. Now you bring a Lakers in there or a top-notch team, you're for sure going to sell it out. So that's, again, that's the difference. But so basketball, I don't know so much about baseball, but Cleveland for years, they were filling that stadium. I was up there
in the
for
90s,
games.
When they were in the 90s.
Yes, they filled that stadium.
They were they were selling that stadium out.
And when they first built the new one, I mean, you couldn't get a ticket. And then when they started running there and they were getting into the playoffs and deep, I was up for the championship game. It was you literally, just like the old Brown Stadium, you feel that stadium rocked. There were so many people having such a good time. You know, they made a ton of money then. Again, and then you turn around with the beer sales and everything, and those guys aren't making the money that the football players are making, so the owners had to make decent money.
Well, and that's what you get into now is, back then the owners were making more money because they didn't have free agency. You're going back a few years.
Yes, absolutely.
Before free agency hit and the players were, making, like I always think now, we had season tickets to the New York Jets back in the mid to late 60s. And I think, we paid the tickets, the parking and the concessions. And then I was thinking, they were only paying those players. Like, I know it's relative, but those guys are only making like $12,000, $15,000. Right. And we were still, granted, we weren't paying $10 a beer. We were probably paying $3 or $4 maybe.
Sure.
Or $1 a Coke or $2 a hot dog was maybe a couple bucks. But you take the Jets, I'd go to the games. So I believe the old Shea Stadium held about 60 some odd thousand, which is typical. But the point is you start adding all the people and the money, and you're not paying players a lot of money.
Right. So they were really making
the
money.
They were really making a good clip of
Their
change.
profit margin was amazing.
That they had TV contract.
Yeah.
And like we had talked about earlier on this show, not earlier this show, but prior, Dave was in, I read a great book about the old AFL. And what maybe people don't realize is the AFL started in 1960. Mm-hmm. It struggled.
Oh, yeah.
And they are having two or three of the teams. The New York Titans was one team. And I think it was Denver. They were struggling franchises barely to make ends meet, but they did it. But when they signed the TV contract with NBC, which was comparable to the contract that the old NFL signed with CBS, the AFL didn't have to move. That's all. We'll be back after.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
During the fall and winter, grilling season never ends, and Gessler Propane is your local supplier. Then make sure you get your hard-earned money's worth. Why go to gas exchanges to pay higher prices for tanks not filled to capacity? Gessler Propane makes sure you're prepared for year-round grilling with 100% filled tanks at a reasonable cost. See Bob Monday through Friday, 10 to 4, and Saturday, 9 to 3 at Gessler Propane, 702 Youngstown Poland Road, Struthers, or call 330-755-9119. Gessler Propane. They got gas.
Saturday morning sports page coming right back at you. 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. Halftime of the Saturday morning sports page. And now we are into the third quarter. And Bob Gessler filling in for Dave Clark and talking a lot. Trying not to get too tied up into the old days. But
you're talking to two old guys.
But I guess what we're really breaking down, we got it more in the economics here.
Yeah,
it's true. Of sports. We're looking at the show. This show is like a maze of doors that open from the side you're on, and that's an old Cat Stevens.
Yep.
In Sitting. The song Sitting by Cat Stevens, that's one of the lyrics in that song. And that's kind of how I always relate to this show is this show is a maze of doors. They open from the side you're on. So you open up we have a tendency to go from one subject to another and opens up doors. So
sure.
Sometimes it just goes and then we try to bring it back.
Yeah, it's just, it keeps it interesting.
Yes, we like to try to. We do the best we can with what we have. So that's
and you ain't got much sitting across from you.
Well, that goes two ways. if the show is an upgrade when Dave Clark's.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
But you've done a good job filling it. Bailing me out.
Yeah, no.
I gave Irish Mike a couple weeks. He was called and bailed me out for a couple weeks. So,
there you go.
Yes, I am a sports bag. Gas baggery, a sports gas bag. Getting though really back, and I know we started the show obviously talking about Caitlin Clark moving on, but the reality is Caitlin Clark has got everybody's attention across the country.
Absolutely.
And Jim Boeheim, who was on Mad Dog Russo, and Jim Boeheim, many years as a Syracuse head coach. Great guy on the radio.
Great guy, great coach.
Really great radio guy, knows the game. But, he basically compared, he says right now, Caitlin Clark is really the most, and I'm paraphrasing, but she's the most popular player right now next to Stephon Curry. And I would agree with him. I said, she right now has got everybody's eyes on a TV set.
Yeah, because I don't remember seeing any of the men's side who stood out. There isn't anybody who really standing out.
I would almost say if I polled 10 people, I would say that most of the people, 9 out of 10, know Caitlin Clark.
I agree.
I bet you 9 out of 10 couldn't name 2 or 3 college men players if they had to. And that opens up this door. This is something, there are 4,000 college players, basketball players, men college basketball players, okay? I'll ask you this question. I know this annoys me when some people do it to me. How many, what do you think, what number do you think with the transfer portal? And then we'll get, I guess, Bronny James is going to go to the transfer portal and also go to the NBA draft. We'll get to that. But how many players do you think of, say, about approximately 4,000? What do you think, rough number?
Over the country.
Over the country. There's 4,000 college basketball players in the country. For how many, just burning curiosity, how many do you think are getting into the transfer portal?
I'm going to say probably about 30 to 40%.
Not a bad guess. It's closer to 50.
Wow.
Yeah. They were saying, I heard this yesterday, and they're figuring that when this all shakes itself out, there will be approximately 2,000 players, which is 50%. Maybe it won't be quite that, but there will be about 2,000 players of the 4,000 entering the transfer portal.
I believe it was Gino from UConn had a press conference. I'm pretty sure it was him. Either that or Calipari. And what he said is, what upsets me now is you don't know how long you're going to have these kids. You bring them in, you tell them what you could do for them. You bring them in as a freshman. You coach them as babies. Now we got them as sophomores. They're starting to go. Then all of a sudden, poof.
They can go.
They go. And he goes, how do you build a program? And that relates, I don't care if it's basketball, it relates to all sports in college right now. I still think that's why Saban left.
Oh, yeah. There's no doubt.
He couldn't do it anymore.
I know Jay Wright, who coached Villanova. He got out a couple years ago, but he could see this coming. Great basketball coach. One of the top basketball coaches in the country. And he had, I believe, won 2 titles. And I believe he got out pretty much because he got out now. It's been a couple years, but he saw the landscape change.
The writing on the wall.
He saw it and he realized that, and I believe he's only like 60, 62 years old. And I think he got to the age where, hey, I'm getting old. He could do TV. He's great on TV.
Sure.
And he's figuring I could do TV and get on with those guys and talk basketball and go home and not worry about, somebody leaving and trying to recruit. But you're getting to the point now where the game has changed, where you have to recruit the kids to stay. So these coaches have to spend off season not only recruiting other kids, but keeping their kids there. But that cuts both ways because these coaches are also looking at transfer portal.
Yep.
So as much as the coaches complain about it, they also, though, are on the other end of the spectrum using the portal to build their team.
Yeah.
So it goes both ways. It's like you can't, again, I know they're complaining, but really the NCAA even can't control how many times kids transfer because I believe, and this is what Boeheim said, they lost that in court, so they have no control over when player is transferred. That's what he was talking about, Mad Dog, because he was saying talking about the NIL. He goes, and he was just saying, hey, this is the state of the game. And that's one reason why Boeheim actually came out and said he got out. Now, sure, Boeheim was 78, 79 years old and been there forever, but he said on the show that he goes, this is one reason why, had a factor why I decided I retired is because I saw this and I was losing kids left and right and I'm trying to recruit kids and they, and then I know they're probably thinking, how long is the old guy going to last here? So he goes, and he just got to the point where he said, and he's very, like I said, another guy that's great on radio, great on TV, knows the game in and out. But again, you brought it up. Saban got out. I think he was obviously the best coach. But he's 71 years old.
But I look at him. If you look at Saban, would you say, if somebody said, guess his age, would you say he's 71 years old? The man looks like he's 50 years old. And he's got the drive and does everything. I like him. I like him as a person for all he has done, him and his wife. But how do you blame these guys? I mean, they've been through football, and I watched his practices. A kid I went to school with, Bama guys, and when he was under Paul Bearer, but he took over, and he never skipped a beat as far as that goes. But how do you blame a guy that has built a program and has molded kids? And now all of a sudden they're jumping here, there, and there. And every year now you have to rebuild. And what's your future? It's just because they're going to expect an Alabama in the championship or deep into the playoffs year after year. And then if that doesn't happen because of the transfer, what's going to happen to that coach? They're going to say, he's slipping. He's old. He's no good. Now, I'll give you another example. Let's do the flip side. Look at Ohio State, what they've done. They actually have guys that said, hey, screw the NFL. I want a national championship. We've gotten beat the last 2 or 3 years or whatever by Michigan. We're going to show them. They are freaking loaded.
Yeah, they're loaded.
They should win. They should blow it should be undefeated national champion on paper. On paper.
2 things. I believe Ohio State probably has these kids lined up with good NIL deals. That's why they're staying.
Well, there's no doubt.
Which they can do, but that's within the letter of the law. Now,
that's it.
They could do it. People get upset with it. People are vehemently screaming and yelling about, and the coaches don't like the fact that when they recruit kids, these kids and their parents, some kids and some parents are looking to see how much money you can give my kid on an NIL deal. And I'll tell you whether or not he's going to go to the school, or the kid will say the same thing. The young man or the young woman will say, well, play. I want to see what kind of NIL deal I have before I commit to the school.
Yeah.
But I blame, if you're going to blame somebody, I guess, the group to blame is the NCAA, because they never got out in front of NIL. They fought it. The transfer portal, they always had that restriction that you had to sit out a year. And in essence, it was ripe for the picking as far as losing it. They lost everything in court. The NIL deal, they fought it and they kept losing in court. They finally got really handed. The Supreme Court shot them down 9-0. States have now allowed it. The states, individual states, allow NIL deals.
Right.
And I know they think, the NCAA thinks, well, we'll go to Congress and get them to fix this.
Yeah,
well,
that's what we need.
Yeah, well, I got a memo for them. First of all, Congress got a lot of other things to fix.
Yeah, our country.
In our country. And we won't go down that road, but I'll just state as a factor, we've got enough other serious problems that the country needs to get figured out. Whether or not, Johnny gets $5,000 or $25,000 or $1 million NIL deal, that's not a problem in the congressman's. And you also basically have, I think they will lose this in court every day of the week. You can't restrict a player's ability to make NIL money. You can't. That's restraint of trade. What do you say? You're going to wait. You see, here's where I go with this to say, okay, I'm 18 years old or 17. I'm 18, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm 18 years old. I could serve our country and go to the military and put my life in jeopardy serving our country. Okay, fine. You mean to tell me because I'm getting a scholarship, I can't make any money? You cannot tell somebody you can't make money off your name, image, and likeness. If you happen to be a popular person, you put out a workout video or, you're a star quarterback and everybody, wants you to advertise at their dealership or whatever, and somebody wants to pay you a bunch of money to do it, then legally, you as a corporation, you can't come back and say, well, you can only make $1 million. You can only make 200,000. That's what we're going to limit it. No, you can't.
You can't do it.
You cannot legally do it. And I will guarantee you one other thing. They're going to lose that in court every time. Even if Congress passes some crappy law, which they won't do, but if they do, they're going to lose that anyway because someone's going to get to a judge and judge says, you can't do that.
But this goes all the way back, and I can't give you the date, but it'll be the Tressel year because this is when it started happening, when these kids were getting stuff that the university gave them.
Right.
And then they got caught because they were selling it to make money. And then they went back to the coaches and said, you're fired because your player did this. Here, you're telling me that basically I bought a car or you gave me a car and I used it and I was done with it or whatever. I can't sell that car to make profit. That's when it started. They were hanging everybody for that stuff. Then that's what got the ball rolling from that point. And here's my point. I understand they have all the right when these colleges are making millions and millions of dollars. I get it. I understand it. There should have been some limit or rules on it. And I'll tell you why. I will tell you the school, but I'll leave it at that. A friend of mine played at Syracuse. And when I went up to see him up at the Carrier Dome, I walked into where the football players are staying, and I'm going, what's this? It's a chalet. I mean, it's a townhouse, and these guys are in townhouses. And when I heard, if I want a steak at 3:00 in the morning, I can go get it. I get this, I get that, I get this, I get that. So I saw it firsthand that these kids, athletes are catered to by these colleges because, again, they're making money. What the colleges should have done was all got together and said, hey, let's do a tier. As a freshman, we'll give you X amount of dollars. As you prove yourself as an athlete, okay, here, just as if you're working in a business. Okay, after so many years, you get a raise. If your work ethic is good, hey, we'll give you some more. Now, instead It's gone through the roof. People are leaving because, well, I could leave Syracuse. You're only going to pay me, we'll say $100,000. I could go to Indiana and make $300,000. That's why a lot of these guys are leaving big schools to go to small schools, because these schools are going, we got the money here. Come and do it. So they've shot themselves in the foot by not regulating it. When are they going to step back and try to regulate this thing? Because it's going through the roof.
Well, they're not. Here's your ultimate problem. They're going to be is if you look at the model in college football and college sports, not only football but college. Sports,
we're talking college in general.
The landscape. Colleges are not going to directly pay the players. They're not doing it because they don't want to make them employees. Then they get a union, and then all of a sudden it'll be like the NFL.
Sure.
Players union, you can't do certain things or you have to pay them so much money. And not all colleges are alike. The Bowling Greens and the Miami of Ohio, they don't have the money.
That Ohio State and Notre Dame, whatever. Yes, I agree.
Just the disparage part is just blow your mind, the difference in money.
Sure.
They don't get Miami of Ohio. I'm using strictly as
examples.
They don't sell out their football. They don't have. They have a beautiful stadium down there in Oxford, but they just don't get that. The kids go, but you're getting maybe 6,000-7,000 kids. You're not getting 100,000 like Ohio State.
Oh,
does.
Absolutely.
But the point on it is you have and have nots, and so the problem you have is you have the select power schools. Ohio State's, Alabama's of the world in a different level than a lot of the other schools. So, the schools will never directly pay. We'll fight like all get out not to pay the kids directly. That's where they're using the NIL as the tool to compensate the kids. That's the way, and it's flawed to some extent because, as you brought it up, there's no control.
Right.
But legally, they can't control it. That was my point. You can't control that. How do you control it legally? You have to put a restraint on what somebody can make off there, and you can't do it. You could try. I'm not saying they're. I mean, believe me, and I'm sure they're going to. But they're going to lose that in court every time.
Well, what I think they need to do is you got to set rules. There's no rules. I mean, it's just like a free for all. So my thing is I think that they have to have some type of governing body. Okay, a board, whatever, and they have got to sit down and look at this because where are they getting the money from all this stuff? Where are they paying these millions? Now
they're getting it from boosters.
Sure. So now here's the
you're
other.
Getting it from a third party.
What's going to happen now? And we'll say this kid's making $1 million. Okay, well he's getting really up there, so they're paying him a couple of $1 million. What happens when the NFL draft comes? What happens to that kid? Here's what's going to happen. Well, I made $5 million my senior year in college. I want to make $300 million is coming out, and you now are going to butt heads. It's not going to happen now, and I may not see it in my lifetime, but eventually this is going to steamroll. Well, where it all goes back down to the fan because who's going to pay for it?
The difference is this. The difference you just stated is this. Why that won't happen going in the NFL is because the NFL, they have a players union labor agreement.
I agree.
And the players are direct employees of the teams.
Yes.
And the teams have basically got an agreement with the Players Association. Okay, coming out, we have NBA does the same thing with kids. Years ago, we remember guys holding out.
Yes.
It was a real big issue years ago when players coming out of college would hold out for a lot of money, and yet they hadn't played it down or any basketball. So the point, and baseball's got a minor league, and that's kind of a different situation. But the whole point coming back to this is they are directly employees of the league. And they're getting paid by the league. There's no NIL, they don't care.
Makes sense. Yeah.
You make whatever you want off your name, image, and like. We don't care.
Right.
If you could, they don't care about that. They're look, and that's where the difference is. Colleges aren't directly paying these kids.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Now, the players are getting paid, but then they have a labor agreement. And the players agreed to this with the owners because the players didn't want it either. The players were getting mad because they go, here's the star guy who's never played down. He's coming in making a hell of a lot more than me. That's not right. The players didn't want it.
That started with Brian Bosworth when they guaranteed that money.
Right.
That's another thing.
Right.
I'm not going to change the subject here, but I want you to think about it. That's why I really thought guaranteed money would never come back to the NFL. Because of that disaster that he had, and guess what? They've done it.
No,
Watson.
Right. They will. And it always, I mean, the thing is now the contracts, that's why when these young men get drafted, they're going to they don't hold out anymore because that money is basically agreed upon with the Players Association.
Right.
So there's really no negotiation. They're going to get based on the round they get drafted. They're going to get X amount of dollars.
Yeah, they're going to get a base salary on their round, and that's what you get. Now, what you get out of your contract later on, that's
wholly
whatever.
Different.
Yes, exactly. But here's what you're going to make.
Contract is set in stone.
Right.
The rookie contracts are they're set in stone.
Prove yourself.
Right. And they're really much based on that.
Yeah.
They always talk about the players. That's why kids come out a little bit earlier because they want to get through the first contract so they can get that second contract. And that's usually the big fat contract. They get that second time around.
Now, is that work after 3 years, 2 years? I don't know how they have that set up now.
Well, I think the way it is, like when you take your colleges, I believe it's 4 years. Like the quarterbacks, first round, they always talk about picking up the 5th-year option with the NFL. And that's where the problem is with the running backs now, is the running backs basically get paid X amount of dollars.
Right.
Well, now the owners, the running backs want to get a lot more money after their contract.
Because why the quarterbacks were, I get you.
And the owners are going, well, we don't really need running backs. I'll draft a guy like the Giants with Saquon Barkley.
Right.
They didn't really want to pay Saquon the money he wanted. The Eagles did for the most part, but the Giants didn't want to pay him his contract because they're going to figure he's been hurt. He's been an ACL. He's 5 years or 4 years. It's time to, we'll get a guy in the 5th.
Move on.
We'll get a 4th rounder, 5th, 6th, we'll get a guy in the draft, a couple guys in the draft. And then they, make a trade here, pick up a free agent.
Sure.
Do running back by committee. Maybe we get lucky in the college draft and we find a guy that can really come in and play great.
Right.
And we're not paying him.
Yeah, we're using his rookie contract for 3-4 years, and guess what? He don't pan out. I go back to the college and say, okay, let's get whoever we need to get.
Justin Fields. One reason why the Bears traded him and are going to go with Caleb Williams was because they were resetting the contract. They were going to ultimately have to decide what they want to pay Justin Fields because they got to pick up his 5th-year option, which I believe was something in the neighborhood of $24 million.
Right. Which is a steal.
However, after that, they have to decide, do they want to give him the $190 million 5-year deal now? And that's going up.
Yeah.
So the whole point is they have to figure we're coming to the proverbial fork in the road, take it, sort of to speak. But you're going to have to pick up after his 5th-year option, then you got to sign him to, big quarterback money or let him go. And so you got to make a decision. They decided, well, we've seen him, he's good, but we'll go back. We'll draft Caleb Williams. Now we reset the contract.
And you saved millions. And that's another thing.
That's exactly what. Then you'll see if, you have Caleb Williams for 3 years or 4 years. Then you make the decision after 4. Do you pick up that 5th-year option? It's always with the quarterbacks, so that's the highest paid position, picking up the 5th-year option.
Sure.
So you're back, and that was one reason why Chicago decided to move on from Fields. Is now they got the advantage of resetting the quarterback contract. And then Pittsburgh has him now, and they're not paying him a lot of money.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you know what his contract was worth?
I know right now Fields is only making, for Pittsburgh's only paying him like $1.5 million.
Wow. So they stole him.
Right.
And what about, what's his name from Denver?
Denver, He's only getting about 1.8 million.
So they've saved themselves tons of money.
Because he's on veteran minimum because he's getting paid by Denver. He's got the guaranteed deal with Denver.
Right.
He's making
guaranteed again. There you go.
Men.
Wow.
So bottom line is, Fields right now is only making his base salary is 1.6 million.
And he probably has some incentives in there if he's got, so I understand
probably
that.
Some, and then here's the nice part is if Pittsburgh decides after this year, this is the thing with Fields. After this year, Pittsburgh has to make a decision. Do we pick up his 5th-year deal of $25 million or let him loose because his contract's up,
right?
And he can go anywhere he wants, but they don't have any dead cap hit or anything. So this is, they got Justin Fields. They're paying him $1.6 million.
It's a steal.
It's a steal, and they have him for 1 year. Now, if Justin Fields goes out and plays like fantastic play, then they could say we'll pick up his 5th year,
sure,
and pay him the $25 million.
And that's still dirt cheap from what these guys are making in the NFL. These guys are making $200,000 a year.
Quarterback contracts now are pushing $50 million a year. That's
wow.
Since we're on the topic, we're coming up at the end of the 3rd quarter of the show. Dak Prescott, this is a big deal now because we'll talk about it after break. What his contract is and what Dallas has got to do because Dak Prescott's contract is coming up. Dallas has to decide, I believe, sometime in the next year, are we keeping him or letting him go? But then if you want to let him go, fine. But if you're going to keep him, what do you have to pay to keep him? And the going rate for quarterbacks is $45 million a year. And that's where Dallas is. So Dallas has to make a decision with him because his contract will be coming up. But that's with the NFL, quarterbacks get the most money.
They get top dog. Yeah.
They get,
I
and the
kind of
running backs
understand.
probably get less money because of and it goes back to the importance of the position.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
So we'll have to wait and see, but we'll talk a little bit more about Dak's contract on the 4th quarter of the show. Yeah, that is the music. Saturday morning sports page. Bob Gessler's with me this morning. I'm Pat Lucia, Western Reserve Radio. We'll be right back after a quick timeout.
Driving has a rhythm of its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
The Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club fitting center, and an Odyssey fitting studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
Hey, let me ask you something. Would you seat your 3-year-old child on a windowsill? Would you seat them beside a lit fireplace or by the deep end of a pool? One last question. Would you seat your child in a car seat that's not correct for them? Car crashes are a leading killer of children ages 1 to 13. Secure their future. Seat them in the correct car seat. For more information, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Want to know what I like best about high school sports? I love watching my son run on the field. I love the fact that since he's been playing high school sports, he's making better decisions. And I love knowing that with the proper equipment, education, conditioning, and coaching, high school sports here in Ohio are safer than ever before. And that's something I really love.
This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Saturday morning sports page coming right back at you. Pat Lucia, Bob Gessler, 330-707-4202. Get in and talk sports. Talking obviously a lot about contracts and money today and salary cap and NILs and college football, college sports. Where's it going? And nobody seems to know.
We had a nice variety today.
Yeah, we were all over the board, which is what I like. No direction. We're out of control. We're Kramer driving the bus and he's out of control.
Well, it's got to be something with that I have to do with it. When you and Dave, you're always on spot. I don't know. There's something about me that we go.
Know. You put two old guys together in a studio.
Yeah.
And this is what the heck you get.
Yeah, you get Paragork, as I say.
Boy. But anyway, it looks like, for the sake of the discussion, Dak Prescott, his contract is up after this year. He is basically making $29 million as a base salary, a signing bonus of $13 million. So that looks like about $43 or $42 million. And if they were to get rid of him today, and they're not, they would take a dead cap hit of $66 million, which they're not going to do. The question with Dallas is basically going to be is what will they do long term? Because his contract is due for an extension. Do they extend him or do they cut him loose and let him go? And that's the point where we're going to have to wait and see what they do with Dak Prescott. Because right now they don't know. He's pretty much saying, fine, wait till the end of the year and I'll either become a free agent or you'll extend me or you guys got to figure it out. And that's where Dallas is as of today. Is Dallas just doesn't, he signed a 4-year, $160 million contract that was back 4 years ago. And he's in the 4th year of his deal. And they have to make a decision with him. What do they do? He is headed towards free agency in 2025 with no extension on the horizon, as it looks like today. Does Jerry Jones make a decision here? And then the question's going to be, what do they do for a quarterback?
Well, that's exactly
if you cut ties with Dak.
At the end of last year, Jerry Jones, I really thought that Jerry Jones thought that they were going all the way this year. And boy,
did.
And it ended quick. And it was because of quarterback play. I saw the game. I thought, wow, what the heck is he doing? I think he tries to do too much. He doesn't rely on his team because he wants to be the man. My personal opinion is you got to, first of all, you got to look at the draft. What's coming up? Do we have a quarterback that's out there that might fit into our situation? Or is there a quarterback floating around the NFL that we might be able to nab at a good price? That's number one. I do not think that Prescott worked out at Dallas. I didn't. I thought he was overrated. Yeah, he won games, as we spoke on the break. He hasn't won the big one. He ain't even close. He keeps faltering second round. And again, they look terrible. He has the players. He has the speed out there. He's got they talked about the offensive line, the best offensive line in the NFL. And you can't do anything with that. You have a great running back. That running back, I mean, why are you not feeding him the ball? Everything's downfield. Everything's all long. Everything's long. This is what upsets me. What about feed the run, hit the intermediates? Now they come up. Linebackers are now looking for run. Safeties are getting nosy. Now you hit the big one. These guys all want to throw these long balls. It drives me nuts.
Well, the other thing with Dallas, what did Dallas in wrong was the defense didn't show up for the Green Bay game either.
I agree with that.
They let Jordan Love turn into Johnny Unitas overnight. And that's what happened. And Dak played okay second half, but they were behind.
Right, and he's not going to get it done.
He's not going to get it done. Let's go to the phones. You're on the sports page. What's up?
Good morning, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Hey, Irish Mike. What's happening?
Doing well. Thank you. Hey, we wrap up the NBA regular season next Sunday.
Yes.
On the 14th. So playoff time's right into playing games and the regular playoffs. And I realize there's injuries involved in all this, but someone try to tell me, besides the Boston Celtics, who's any good in the East?
The Celtics.
There we go. There's your answer.
Here's the problem I have with the Boston Celtics is they're the best team on paper. I watch them play, and they live, I hate to say the cliche, live and die by the three. But they get, I'll tell you one thing with Boston, I won't be surprised if somebody doesn't bounce them out of the playoffs, though, because they rely on that three-pointer, and I've watched them a few games this year when that three-pointer against the Cavaliers, to be honest with you, where they should have beat the Cavs by 15-20. They blew the game because they keep shooting a three. When those threes in the fourth quarter do not fall for Boston, they keep throwing them up, and they let the team back in the game. Yeah. And, you're right. Technically, on paper, the East should be a breeze for the Boston Celtics, and it might be. But I could see if some team upsets them the first two games and they get tight in a series, I wouldn't be overly shocked at somebody like Cleveland, maybe the Bucks, or the Knicks have Julius Randle out, so they're not going to go anywhere in the playoffs. But I could see another team getting in there over Boston just because I watched Boston play, and they do. You're right, Irish Mike. They are by far the most talented team in the league, definitely in the East. But for some reason, I have a bad feeling they could get beat in the playoffs by a Miami or who knows. And they did last year.
What's bothered me, guys, about J.D. Bickerstaff for the Cavs is the fact that the guy's obsessed with winning regular season games. Yeah. Like, I don't get, 2 years ago when they got the playoffs, they got bounced in the play-in. They had 2 games for the play-in. They lost both games and were eliminated very early. And then last year, the Knicks beat them 4-1. They were eliminated early when they had the home court advantage. Like, people, some of my friends, guys, are obsessing over, we want the home court advantage. When, just to flip home court advantage, guys, all you have to do is win one game, right? That's it. It's not like, we've never seen that happen before. So, for me, Donovan Mitchell should not be playing right now. Like, he should never came back. An extra 2 or 3 weeks rest, getting them ready for the playoffs, which is the most important time. Pat, I've called your show for many years, and I've been telling you since last October. I did not care about this regular season. Just make the playoffs. No one's going to remember how many games you won in November, December, January, nor does anybody care.
No, you're 100%.
LeBron's last 2 years, 08, 09, 09, 10, before he went to the Miami Heat, and you remember the decision, big decision, we had the best record in the NBA. We had home court advantage throughout the entire playoffs. And neither year did we ever take advantage of that. Yeah. So the NBA is one of those things that's been around forever. And you say, well, the regular season is the regular season. So if you drop a few games here or there, or guys are going to miss games, I just don't see any reason. We all watched Donovan Mitchell play the last 2 weeks since he came back, and he's clearly not close to 100%.
Well, isn't the bottom line is to make the playoffs? So I'm 100%. I'm with you, Irish Mike. This is Coach Bob. I don't follow basketball. I just don't. But just talking and what you're saying is true. Just get into. Who cares your record as long as you get in? Then that's when you got to turn it up because technically you're right. That's when it counts. The playoffs is when it counts.
30 teams in the NBA and 20 of them make the playoffs.
Well, here's the only thing right now. So your point, both your points, is the Cavaliers are really playing for position.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right now, this is how tight, and we get into this every year. If you look at the standings in the NBA, how tight these teams are compressed. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, repetitive, but here. The Boston Celtics have the number 1 seed. We know that. They're 14 games up. However, the Cavaliers, as of today, sit at the number 3 seed. They're only a game behind Milwaukee for the 2 seed. However, right behind the Cavaliers' heels are the Orlando Magic and the New York Knicks, are only a game behind Cleveland for that number 3 seed.
But here's the thing, Lucia. Here's the thing with me. I got a text message an hour ago, my buddy. The Knicks lost last night. The Bucks lost last night. Right. The Magic lost last night. That went great for Cavs. And I said, do you really want to become the 2 seed and play the 7th seed and play the Philadelphia 76ers in round 1 or play the Miami Heat in round 1? Do you really want to do that?
Well, and that's a good point. And that's your dilemma kind of is
And don't give him a home court advantage. Please don't give me that. Please. Joel Embiid averages 35 points a game. Okay? And he missed the last 2.5 months. He just came back, 5 or 6 days ago.
But to your point, again, there's no guarantee you're playing those teams either, because to give you an idea, the Indiana Pacers sit at number 6. They're a half a game above Miami Heat. And actually, Philadelphia's at the 8th seed, and they're only a game and a half behind Indiana, but they're trying to get out of that play. See, right now, as of we speak, the Heat and Philadelphia are in that play-in tournament with the Bulls, Chicago Bulls, and Atlanta Hawks. Now, that's set. The 10 teams in the East are set. The problem you have is there's no guarantee that the Heat or the Sixers are going to survive the play-in tournament, because, again, we saw last year Miami Heat were losing to the Chicago Bulls in the play-in game and made a great comeback and ended up they ended up getting hot, getting into the finals. They were 1 or 2 baskets from losing to the play-in tournament and never getting out of that. The NBA is just such a proverbial crapshoot, especially as tight as these teams are on top of one another. Cleveland loses a couple games, they could be down. Actually, if they lose a couple games, they could be down to the 5th or 6th seed. They're running, but the point is they're 2.5 games over Indiana Pacers, who have the 6th seed. So these teams are so tight.
Tomorrow in LA.
I don't know.
Games in LA this weekend.
What's that?
I said they have back-to-back games in LA this weekend.
Yes.
They play the Lakers this afternoon, and then they play the Clippers tomorrow afternoon.
Right.
Out in LA.
And you take big.
You hope you want to split, right? You just want to split those games.
Yeah, and I know where your friends are getting ticked because they go, well, they don't want the 2 seed because you might play Philadelphia or Miami, and nobody seems to want to play Philadelphia 76ers.
No,
because Embiid
was out for 2.5 months. He missed 25, 30 games, and he just came back for. So we'll have 8 to 10 regular season games under his belt before he hits the playoffs.
And there's but the problem is there's no guarantee they're going to survive the play-in tournament.
Yeah, good point.
And I mean, that's just the way this.
But at least they could have brought him back quicker, Pat, and they waited another 2 to 3 weeks because they wanted him 100% healthy. Right. It seems like to me when Donovan Mitchell's been hurt the last 3 or 4 months that they've rushed him back both times. When you watch him play, every fan can see he's not healthy.
Yeah. Then I don't
get that. I don't understand that.
Yeah, because you don't want to risk him for
Denver. They lost by 30 points, or Phoenix, and they ended up playing 32 minutes in a game they lost by 20. They're down by 25 points at halftime, and he played 32 minutes on a bad knee. I'm like, what are you doing here? Yeah. I don't get it.
Yeah, it's well taken.
Yeah, I don't understand coach.
That.
I don't understand any coach that plays a player. Because if he is at 100%, what do you think you're going to do? First of all, getting 100% out of that player. Second of all, do you want to do more damage to him? I understand it's the numbers. I know the brackets, and it's all about the money. How about let's look at the person and what he could do for you? I would rather sit a guy out for a week or 2 or whatever they need to get rehab, to get better, be 100%, then go in there and say, now here you go. I'm going to let you out of your cage. Go eat him up.
And I think we all recognize this. If the Cavs have an early exit in the playoffs like they did 2 years ago and like they did last year, that JB Bickerstaff will be let go. I think that's the worst kept secret in Cleveland sports right now. And I'm not sure even Kobe Altman, the general manager, survives it either if they take an early exit this year, because they made the big trade 2 years ago to get Donovan Mitchell. You trade away 3 players. You trade away 3 future first-round draft picks. The Cavs did very similar to what the Browns did. Hey, we want to bring the superstar in.
Yeah.
And but Donovan Mitchell's in his 7th year in the NBA. He played 5 years in Utah and the 2nd year in Cleveland. Now he's played his best ball in Cleveland, but his teams have never advanced, Pat, right? Very far through the playoffs, right? That's been a knock on his career.
That's the knock on Donovan Mitchell is the Utah teams were early exit when he was with them. And then last year, Cleveland had, they had the team and they went out to the Knicks last year and first round. And people were obviously, you won all those games in the regular season. Well, we saw that with LeBron. The first time LeBron was in with Cleveland, they'd win all those games, and Boston would lay in the weeds and beat him in the playoffs. and take games off during the regular season, but in the playoffs they got healthy, full strength, and came back. And that's the way it's structured in the NBA. Is you're right, is you gear it because there's 30 teams in the NBA. They play 82 games to eliminate 10 of them. 20 teams get in.
Lucia loves that, by the way. She loves that.
But you know what? Think about it. He's right.
82 games to eliminate 10 teams. I mean, come on. Why would? And then they complain that the players don't take the regular season serious. How can you? Why? Why would you take the regular season seriously when you're pretty much going to get in the playoffs unless you really stink? Your team's terrible.
Yeah.
And Pat, I've had arguments with friends over the last 5, 6, 7 years over this, and you've had multiple conversations.
Yeah.
With Phil Bob in here. Danny Ainge, when he was with Boston, remember he got rid of Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, that big trade with the Brooklyn Nets at the time? And he rebuilt the Celtics, and now they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the league the last 4 or 5 years. But they were bad there for a while. He accumulated a bunch of first-round draft picks. Remember, he made all those trades? And then who did that most recently? The Oklahoma City Thunder. They were bad for 2 or 3 years. They made trades and got a bunch of first-round draft picks, and now look where they're at. Danny Ainge is doing the exact same thing in Utah. I think they have 8 or 9 first-round draft picks over the next 3 years or something ridiculous with the Donovan Mitchell trade and other trades he's made. Here's the argument, Bob. In the NBA, you either want to be really, really good or you want to be really, really bad.
No, you're right. No.
You're right. So you can get the picks.
That for years. My friends argue with me. No. I said, okay, you're the Cavs. You make the playoffs. You get eliminated earlier. Nobody cares about those games you won back in November, December, January. Nobody cares.
Yeah, you're right.
The Knicks fans go through the same thing. They just go exactly through it. They're tweener.
Yeah.
Now they're not going to go anywhere in the playoffs because Julius Randle has a shoulder surgery. If they had any chance, if they had any chance of maybe challenging the Celtics, is gone. They're not going to, they don't have the other, they really need Randle badly. I mean, they got Brunson, they have a good team, but they're not going to be able to compete with the Celtics without Julius Randle, and he's out for the year. So again, the point is, the question I have though, really, and I've watched this, and I think if there's a team that could compete with the Celtics and maybe even beat them, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have the team, I think, that can do it. And I think Boston's got an Achilles heel when they get tight. I've seen them get tight in games where they can't launch that. Then when that 3 point's not falling and the team's coming up on them and they get tight, and it makes me laugh is because they won't settle for the 2-pointer. They keep launching up the 3, and when it's not falling, you can feel the tightness in their arena, and everybody's getting tight, and you could see this team coming back into the game. I saw Cleveland beat them. The Cleveland was down. I thought we were watching it. It was a Friday night game, I believe. And I said, this game's terrible. These Cavaliers don't have anything. And then Boston couldn't make a shot. And Cavs came back and beat them. But I've seen that happen with Boston a lot. And I know they're the best team on paper. And they might have the 2 best players there in the league, or, top 10 players, 2 or 3. The point is, the way they play basketball, I don't necessarily, if Cleveland, if they can get off that hump of a younger team and they have playoff experience last year, if they build from that, I think they have a shot at the Celtics this year. I could be dead wrong. I usually am, but I won't be surprised though either.
Well, yeah, that's going to be a tough call, but you're right. You live and die with the 3. My thing is, put more people in their faces, force them to take these long shots. Now they start missing. Now you go down there and obviously you've got to get it done on your side. But I agree with you. When I see these teams, shooting those 3s up, it's like, good Lord, my Lord. With Caitlin, I mean, when she's on, but she had a game or 2. I watched her, man. She was off. But then she fed it to the other people because they were so worried about her, and then they came back and ate them up. But, Celtics. Think,
Bob, you would agree with the statement. I know Pat and I have talked about this many times. I don't think there's any professional sport out there, football, baseball, basketball, hockey, that's any more different than the NBA regular season compared to the NBA playoffs.
Oh, I agree.
different intensity. Guys are actually playing a lot harder. And Bob, don't fall out of your chair. They're actually defending people.
Well, here's what I also tell you. That's why I don't watch a lot of basketball, especially the pros. I just think it's boring.
The pros are hard to watch in the regular season. They are. That's 100% fact.
So same way with college basketball. I love when they get to March Madness. And I even got my girl hooked who hates basketball. I got her screaming at the TV because we saw such great games this year. In at the college level, I mean, everything was close. I had one or two that, the games that they got kind of blown out by 20 or whatever. But on the average percentage, the games this year have been amazing. And that's what they need to do. And the NBA needs to get that back because college basketball, well, it's like the girls. The girls have just destroyed the men's basketball because these girls are playing so good and so tough, and they have these people out there. So the NBA's got to get back into the swing of that, where they, it's a battle now. And I personally haven't seen it in years. And that's when I said, you know what? I can't watch this. It's just not fun. And Pat and I have talked, put these guys in there with a Lambeer and some of them Chamberlain and those guys. And you know what it is? It's all about the offense. And the problem that I have is, and when I watch a game, it's scary because a ball goes up and the offense runs. And all you see is the defense standing there, and it's just so easy. All they got to do is wait for the ball to come off the rim. They get it, and they're bringing it down court. What happened to the defense? What happened to the fighting for the ball and stuff? NBA, you just don't see it anymore.
Well, the game is, the problem with the NBA, the game has evolved to really where the emphasis is now on three-point shooting to a large extent. And it's not the game that maybe we watched growing up. It wasn't the game, Irish Mike, you would be more related to the 80s and the 90s, right?
Yeah, correct.
Your age, I could relate to the 60s and the 70s, 80s. But the point is, and then you're right, you saw the 80s and the 90s, Jordan and Magic and Larry Bird in their prime play the 80s, and then Jordan in the 90s. And the game was then even totally different.
Right.
Than it is today. And it's just that it's a more three-point shooting perimeter game now than it's ever really been before.
But I think if teams come out and force and play more defense, I think you'll see a difference. I really do. Force them to get out of that and start taking maybe 2-point shots that maybe are not at on the 3-point line.
But the problem's been, Bob, when you form these super teams like the Phoenix Suns last summer, the trade for Bradley Beal from Washington, they obviously have Booker and Kevin Durant. Those are 3 of the top 15 players in the league.
Yes.
And they're known for their scoring. They're not known for their defense. So when the Cavs played the Phoenix Suns twice in 10 days, and I told my friends, hey, when they play those 2 games, you got to win 130 to 127 because they're going to score, but they're not going to stop anybody either.
Right. I agree.
Nor are they going to try to stop people. They're all about offense.
Yes. But anymore, it doesn't seem like, I coached football or I watch football, but it's like that's what people want. They want these high scores. They love that. See, I'm a guy that says, yeah, I was an offensive coordinator, but I want to see that defense. I want to see these guys banging around.
Need some stops, man.
I want to see those games. That's what makes it exciting.
And the sad part is it's
you're not going to see it.
Back.
Well, I think it will eventually. I think it'll come circle.
May.
And I believe that. I think that eventually it's going to have to come back to that. I don't know. Maybe I'm dead wrong, but you can't. I really do. I'd like to see it because I think you'll get more TV revenue. Now you got games that guys are out there really playing the game instead of watching a guy go down there.
The ultimate problem you're going to have with the NBA, and this is what I keep going back to, your regular season is not going to attract any attention, and that doesn't really generate TV ratings. They do average at best. The point is, it's like baseball. The regular season is basically useless.
Hey, Pat, I have a question for you. 2 months ago or so, the Milwaukee Bucks hired Doc Rivers. Season they fired their coach late January, late February, and hired Doc. He's been there about 2 months now. They still got 3 or 4 games to get through. But they made the big splash last year when they traded for Damian Lillard, right? Yeah. Dame from Portland. And Drew Holiday ended up going with the Celtics. Right. It seems like he was a better fit of Milwaukee, what they want to do, because he actually guards people. Okay?
Right, he plays defense. Dame Lillard,
you're right. In the NBA.
Right.
And Dame's a better scorer, obviously.
Right.
So you have Middleton, you have the Greek Freak, and you have Dame. Let's suppose Milwaukee goes out early this year. And the last 3 games, Pat, let me say, they lost to Washington,
right?
They lost to Memphis, and they lost to Toronto last night. 3 non-playoff teams are playing out the string. 3 straight losses in a row. So, and I know Damon's been out hurt. He hasn't played. And we'll see where he gets the playoffs. But hypothetically, they go out early, okay? If you're the front office of Milwaukee Bucks, don't you have to seriously consider trading the Greek Freak and maybe getting 2 or 3 legitimate players, maybe not great players, but solid players, and 2 or 3 future first-round draft picks to rebuild your team?
I
Because
mean,
if you're going to run it back like the Golden State Warriors, playing with a bunch of older guys in the NBA really don't work.
Yeah, and that's what you have to make a decision is if you trade the Greek Freak, what do you get? Do you rebuild with a whole different team? And I mean, I guess it's one option.
He's not 25, 26 years old anymore.
Right.
I mean,
well, you get into the older player and diminishing returns.
Right.
And I always go back to, it always goes back to outperforming your contract. Does the player outperform his contract, or do they and the teams that win always have players, not always, but most of the time they have players that outperform their contracts. They get bigger bang for, and that's any sport.
Yeah.
The teams that struggle is you're overpaying for bad performance. That's those teams struggle. And in the NBA, I guess you have to make that decision with Giannis is, have we reached that fork in the road? But it could be the team construction is that was a bad trade. You should have never traded
Can you see that in all sports, Pat? Aren't the New York Mets going through that in Major League Baseball? Now they got contracts they don't want anymore?
Yeah, they're terrible. I mean, they don't have any pitching. Yeah. They just have no pitching at all. I mean, that's the problem with the Mets.
You understand what I'm saying? In any sport, when you're overpaying for value for guys,
right?
In any sport, you want to maximize your value.
Yes.
If you're going to make a decision to transition, like Danny Ainge did in Boston, now he's doing Utah, you want to maximize your assets.
Yeah, that's it. No, outperform the contract.
Yep.
Thank you, Irish Mike, for calling in.
Hey, you have a great weekend, gentlemen. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you, Bob Gessler.
I enjoy myself.
Doing the show.
This is nice.
This is Pat Lucia, Saturday Morning Sports Page. Do not drink, do not drive. Get the designated driver, buckle up, and stay safe. Everybody have a great and a safe Western Reserve Radio.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Bonatoni, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, everybody, let's get into it. Welcome into the Lombardi Line presented by DraftKings. No Michael Lombardi today. He's getting some well-deserved time off. Told us yesterday he's hitting the beach, headed to the Bahamas, but very fortunate to have Adam Burke in with us for today. And I mean, as if you're not busy enough already with everything you do with the website and the podcast, just throw in another couple hours on air.
That's fine. I enjoy doing the show with you, Stormy. And again, we got to have some kind of Cleveland representation on the program without Michael here.
At all times. Very important. Yes. Well, appreciate you as always. Also on the show coming up in about 30 minutes, VSiN's own Mike Somich, host of The Handle. He'll join us, dive into his Final Four thoughts, as well as he always comes locked and loaded with an NHL play. So excited to see what that is today. Later on in hour 2, Justin Perry of Shot Quality and your partner with the new pod on DraftKings Network, Dustin Sweetelson, will join us in hour 2 as well. A little preview before he hits the Sharp Money desk coming up the show after hours, but excited to get Dustin on here.
Yeah, he actually, we recorded our newest edition of the Double Play podcast this morning, which is part of the DraftKings podcast network. And he said, hey, thanks for getting me on Lombardi Line today. And I went, what? Huh? So he was the one who actually let me know we'll be talking about the pod today.
The surprise was for you, yes, of course. But no, excited for that because you guys do such a great job. I know I told you when you joined us on the show yesterday and we were talking a little Final Four. I love the blend of your two personalities and your two approaches to baseball being so different. So again, that'll be a fun conversation in hour 2. But let's start off with the big NFL news that came out yesterday. Stefon Diggs traded from the Buffalo Bills to the Houston Texans. Is a season that's filled with lots of questions, appeared at time to be friction between he and Josh Allen, most notably in the playoffs, that yelling situation that we remember even last offseason, Sean McDermott, when Stefon Diggs doesn't show up to the mandatory minicamp, he says he is really concerned. I feel like there were just a lot of layers to this, and now he's out the building, and it cost him $31 million in dead salary cap.
Yeah, and I think it's the most telling thing about it, right? I mean, they got a second-round pick in 2025, which is, decent. I mean, I'm sure that they'll turn that into something good, but to take the $31 million dead cap hit, they wanted that guy the hell out of the building, and now they got it. So we'll see what they do going forward, but obviously there were some things going on behind the scenes. And look, I mean, Diggs over the last 11 games in 2023, just 58 catches, just 563 yards, only 3 touchdown receptions. He had 5 games actually, in the first 6 with over 100 yards receiving, not another one after that. So maybe there were not only chemistry issues off the field, but on the field as well.
Stefon Diggs bids farewell to Buffalo on Instagram in a much nicer way than his waving goodbye in the cover photo on Twitter 10 days ago. He says, "I can't begin to express the amount of love and respect I have for the city of Buffalo. For the best years of my life, the city welcomed me with open arms. I'm forever grateful for you all in the Bills organization." Okay. Here is their general manager, Brandon Beane, discussing the move.
Yeah, I mean, are we better today? Probably not. It's a work in progress, and we're going to continue to work on that. I would just hope that people know I'm as competitive as hell, and I ain't giving in.
Did you talk to Josh prior to the move? Have you talked to him since the move? And I guess what have those conversations been like?
I have not talked to him since the move. Josh and I have a pretty regular conversation on things, and I think it's important for me to make sure if I think something could happen to make sure he's not blindsided. And so I would, without going into the discussion with Josh, when the last time we spoke was, I did alert him that, there had been some inquiries and it wasn't 100% off the table.
And you said, this team clearly wanted to get him out of the building. So a positive from that standpoint, that somebody who wasn't working, whether it's relationship-wise with Josh Allen or not, he is no longer there. But that also means from a talent standpoint, the Buffalo Bills are hemorrhaging, it feels like. They also lost Gabe Davis to the Jaguars. So their top wide receivers now are Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir. Their defense lost starters Trey White, Jordan Poyer, and Leonard Floyd. Can Josh Allen put the franchise on his back now, essentially? Because I feel like that's what the team and Brandon Beane is asking him to do.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're asking him to do. And look, I mean, Diggs only had 51 yards per catch over the last 11 games. So from a production standpoint, how much is it going to hurt them? I think it's fair to wonder. Obviously, again, as you mentioned, the guys who are left here are a problem. And maybe they will dangle that second round pick to get a wide receiver or something like that. Certainly that becomes a focal point for them in the draft as well. So they'll have to rely on their talent evaluation and their scouting and see if they can replace Diggs in some capacity. But this is an organization that, again, they had a measure of success last year, going 11-6, winning the division again, but something felt off throughout the year anyway. A lot of people questioning Sean McDermott. They've had the offensive coordinator change as well. It seemed like losing Brian Dable was a really big blow for them. They go to Dorsey. It seemed like that was a step down. So I think organizationally, there's a lot going on here. And when you listen to Brandon Beane in that soundbite, he sounds like a guy who doesn't have a whole lot of answers, right? It was I don't know if maybe melancholy is the word, but there was no excitement to his voice about what lies ahead. There was not really the sound of optimism in any way. And
usually you don't make a move like that unless you have a plan, which it doesn't really seem, at least based on the way he was talking, that there is one right now. They are a minus 300 favorite to take a wide receiver now with their first selection in the draft. The division is really interesting now, though, because I feel like I have very little faith in any of the teams that are in it, because Buffalo is your favorite now, and those odds did move despite them still being the favorite from plus 120 to plus 160 now. You're not going to sell me on Miami being a powerhouse, considering the way they just beat up on sub 500 teams last year. But when they did play a team with the winning record, they were 1-6, averaging 16 points per game, and their defense is going to take steps back. No Christian Wilkins, talent leaving left and right. And then the Jets, I did this whole argument yesterday on, I just cannot get sucked in by this Jets team despite the roster that they have, because who knows who's going to stay healthy where. The Patriots, I don't anticipate pulling a Texans going from worst to first after the season that they had this past year. So do you see any value on the board as you look at it? Bills plus 160, Jets and Dolphins plus 200?
I would at least say this in defense of the Patriots. There's more of a chance of them going worst to first now today, I think, than there was yesterday, just because of kind of more of the message that the Diggs transaction sends to the rest of the Bills. Because as you said, now they're very, very thin at wide receiver. They will focus on it. But at this point in time, there aren't free agents available, really. You may be able to trade for somebody. Maybe somebody gets cut toward the end of camp, something like that you can pick up. But Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think there's any of these teams that I would be able to trust. The Jets, as you mentioned, really good roster. What does Aaron Rodgers have left in the tank coming off of the Achilles now? And for Miami, at some point, you got to beat a good team. So, yeah, I don't trust any of these teams. It's a very wide open division. And I think the Bills deserve to be the slight favorite, but I don't know if it will be that way by the time we get to week 1, depending on, how the Dolphins and the Jets sort of sort things out.
They have gone over their win total every season since Sean McDermott took over. We'll see if they can do it yet again, sitting at 10.5 right now. On the other side of this, the Houston Texans portion of it all, they just continue to load up with talent, it seems, each of the last 2 years around their young quarterback and CJ Stroud, who they don't have to pay. But how is Stephon Diggs, you think, based on what we know about the issues he had in Buffalo about not getting the ball, now entering a wide receiver room with some really great young talent in Nico Collins, in Tank Dell when he comes back healthy?
Yeah, Noah Brown's a really good player too. So, and also Dalton Schultz. I mean, CJ Stroud and a lot of quarterbacks, I think, kind of figure this out as they mature in the league. The tight end is a really viable option for you. So I think Dalton Schultz is a guy who's going to get his targets as well. It's kind of, sort of the NBA thing when you kind of put together a super team. Like, there's only one ball, right? There's only one guy that can shoot the ball on that possession in the NBA. Now, obviously, you can spread it around over, 8, 10, 12 plays, whatever the case may be. But yeah, CJ Stroud now has to find a way to keep everybody happy. And remember, Joe Mixon is a guy who likes to get his touches in the receiving game as well. He's a better receiver than he is a running back. So there's a lot of options here for CJ Stroud. But I mean, look, that's what you want to do, right? I mean, we're seeing all these teams across the NFL. We're seeing it with the Bears, obviously, in anticipation of Caleb Williams. They're surrounding these quarterbacks with as many skill position guys as they possibly can. And you have to do that with a young quarterback. And with Stroud coming off of one of the best rookie seasons we've seen all time for a quarterback, it makes a ton of sense. But then it's also interesting to look at the Buffalo side, where you have a proven, established quarterback in Josh Allen, and he's just losing weapons left and right. So maybe the power dynamic's shifting a little bit now in the NFL, and I think that could be really interesting to follow.
Yeah, the odds have shifted, saying that the Texans are certainly looking like a contender in the AFC, and even for a Super Bowl, down from 25-1 to 17-1, and favored to repeat in the AFC South at plus 115. Let's switch to hoops here real quickly.
I do want to mention one thing, real quick. This week over at vsin.com, Michael Lombardi wrote about the Jacksonville Jaguars and about Trevor Lawrence. And I'm sure he talked about it on the program already, but I just wanted to give him a shout out, let everybody know that article is over there to read at vsin.com, where, yeah, I mean, for the Jaguars, this is a very important season regarding Lawrence and kind of the direction of the organization, where the Texans, I mean, they fleeced Cleveland in the Deshaun Watson deal. They've turned this team around in light speed. I mean, it's been unbelievable. And now all of a sudden you've got a Jaguars team that was thought to be kind of the class of this division, now playing catch up. And I think Indianapolis has got a pretty solid roster as well. So big year upcoming for the Jaguars, and Trevor Lawrence specifically, which Lombardi wrote about over at vsin.com.
Yeah, I can't remember who I saw tweet about it the other day, but the Texans went from a dumpster fire to destination real quick, the way that they've turned things around. And DeMeco Ryans probably should have been coach of the year last year, depending on who you ask, with what they've been able to do. He's a defensive guy leading the defense. You've got all this young talent on offense. It's been fun. And yeah, the article on vsin.com from our guy Michael, Trevor Lawrence, it was like, is this the end, or now or never for Trevor Lawrence? And yeah, it was funny when we talked on the program about it the other day. When I was looking through the schedule, I didn't even realize this at the time until I went back through it, that when they went on that run the back end of the season after starting 8-3 and just kind of falling apart after that, they only won one game the rest of the way. It was against the Carolina Panthers, who are the worst team in the league. And it was the game that Lawrence didn't even start. It was the CJ Beathard game. So things just absolutely collapsed for the Jaguars a year ago. We'll see if they're able to get off on the right foot here in 2024, or if things just continue to fall. We're going to hit the break. When we come back, we will turn our attention to a little college hoops. The Final Four is upon us, and we got the NIT title tilt coming up. We'll be right back on the Lombardi Line.
The thrill and excitement of March Mania is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps, is giving new customers a shot to turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets with any college basketball bet. New customers can bet $5 to get $150 instantly in bonus bets, only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code VEGAS. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/bball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Catch a special edition of Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Pauly Howard today at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific from the DraftKings Sportsbook at TPC Scottsdale. They'll talk with the VEASAN betting experts.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
This is Matt Lipsack, the voice of the Youngstown Phantoms, and your home for Phantoms hockey is Western Reserve Radio.
Even with the calendar flipping to April, the madness continues in college basketball as we welcome you back into the Lombardi Line presented by DraftKings. Michael Lombardi and Stormy Bonantoni with you. And we'll get into some more college hoops talk with Tom Crean, who joins us now, ESPN college basketball analyst, former head coach, has multiple Big Ten titles with Indiana, brought Marquette to a Final Four. He's been joining us every week of the tournament and back on the Progressive guest line today. Coach Crean, welcome in. Thanks for joining us. And it is Final Four season. We are here.
No, it's great to be with you guys, and it's what's really inspiring is when the Brent Musburger voiceover introduces you to, like, that's high level.
Yeah, I love it. It makes me smile every time I hear it, Coach Crean. It's unbelievable because as a fat kid growing up in New Jersey, I would listen for the NFL. You were looking live. It just it made my day, and it still does when I hear that voice. Before we go on the tourney, what's your reaction to how people defend Caitlin Clark? I was surprised last night that they didn't try to get the ball out of her hands like West Virginia did. As a coach, and you're watching, what's your instinct on trying to slow her down?
Well, first off, she's so good going to her left. I mean, she's got it's Steph Curry-like. It's really Trae Young-like with the way that she shoots that step back off her left foot. And she gets lined up. So, once she's across half court and coming in a full head of steam, it's almost too late. And again, it bears repeating every time you talk about her. She leads the nation in assists. She's such a great passer. She's so quick and athletic from what you can see and then from what people say about her. So with that being said, you've got to get a trap up there hard. You got to be high-handed quickly if you're going to put pressure on her. I think you got to get up in the backcourt and turn her and not let her play that speed downhill game as much as possible. And again, I'm saying all that, and it's way easier said than done, but she can beat you so many ways. I don't think you can let her go left. I mean, she can go both ways. I think she operates so well playing off that left hand, left foot, and then she can drive it. You got to try to make her pass under pressure. But the one thing you don't want to do is you do not want to let her have any type of freedom. The more you can be physical with her, obviously, when she's coming off screens, the better. The more you can switch, the better. You almost got to push her looks and catches out and not let her get the ball coming downhill and then force her to make a decision. But you got to have 2 to 4 sets of hands up constantly to take away her vision and to take away her look at that rim.
Well, and then even when you do that, because yes, she can shoot from anywhere on the floor, but she's the nation's leading assist maker as well. So she can beat you in so many different ways. Tom Crean joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. This is the Lombardi Line on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Let's turn the page to the men's tournament here because we do have a couple interesting games, big favorites in the top seeds in UConn and Purdue. But I want to ask you about NC State because they're the first team with 14 plus losses to reach a Final Four, yet they have won 9 straight elimination games. What's allowed this team to change so dramatically from what we saw in the regular season? And are they capable of keeping it up against Zach Edey and the Boilermakers?
Well, I think they're capable of it. I think it's just confidence. I mean, I really do. I mean, everyone talks about the Virginia free throw miss that Michael O'Connell hit. But you got to look at the way they played inside of that game. They made timely shots inside of that game. And I think what you have is DJ Burns is getting a lot of attention. Diarra is a real key to how DJ Burns plays because if you double off him, he's in position offensive rebound or he can get a drop off. I think one of the reasons they are passing the ball so willingly and they're moving it so well. And I'm sure there's some truth to what DJ Burns said where the people are playing for each other. They're on time for things. They're not complaining a lot. You know, chemistry is really, really important. And when you're winning, it's a lot easier to get it, as everybody knows, right? And so they look like they have that chemistry. I think they were passing the ball pretty well at the end of the year, even before this started. They really should have beat Duke late in the regular season. And they really stopped going to DJ Burns as much as they could. They couldn't guard him then. And then what they've done in the tournament, they've moved the ball. They've defended. Michael O'Connell is a 3-year grad from Stanford, played for Joe Mantegna at Blair Academy. So he's been extremely well coached, extremely competitive. And I think he energizes their team. I think with the way he moves the ball, the way he defends his timely threes, I think it energizes everybody else, like DJ Horn, Diarra, DJ Burns, Ben Middlebrooks, Casey Morsell. I think he energizes their team with his defense and his ability to move without the ball. I don't think it's a fluke. I think it's more, why weren't they winning during the year? And maybe they did have some issues that they had to overcome. But they've overcome them, and they've got so many different ways that they can beat you now.
Yeah, and I thought too, Coach, I thought you're right. I thought Middlebrooks, him coming in that game kind of gave him a toughness. I thought they out-toughed Duke. I really did. I think this is a tough-minded, mentally tough team that – thought that they had, they were trailing, but once they got control of the game in the second half early, their toughness looked like made Duke wilt away.
Well, they've been out toughing people throughout the whole NCAA tournament, but I don't think it's a toughness issue with Duke as much as it's a adjustment issue with them, and they've not adjusted in 3 games on how they guarded DJ Burns. And really, Carolina didn't either when they beat them. They did a little bit at the beginning of the game. DJ Burns, this is why it's going to be so interesting to watch with Edey, because you can't let either one of those guys get into their rhythm dribble. Now, Zach Edey needs less dribbles, and he's obviously bigger, and he's scored so good over his left shoulder. But everybody lets those guys get into their rhythm. And Zach is so hard to referee because he's 7'4", and when he puts out those elbows, they're going to be in your chest and facial area. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's the way he's built. I don't think he's doing it intentionally as much as he's been taught very well on how to post up and seal and use his body to his advantage. But the team that's going to win that game, a lot of it is going to be the weak side rebounding. Some of it's going to be the shooting, obviously. I think can Purdue guard DJ Horn, which is easier said than done. I still think the weaknesses for Purdue is Lawyer and Jones's ability to really guard the ball. I still think that's true. But bottom line is you're not blocking Burns' shot, right? Because if you don't have incredible length and reach, you're really not changing Burns' shot because he's so good. He's so wide-shouldered. He's so good at putting his shoulder into you. And that jump hook is where you can't get it. And it's not really a jump hook. It's kind of a push hook, but you can't get to it. and I think that's where Edey, if they're going to have to help on that, because Zach Edey he can get to 7-7 in the next couple of days, and he's going to have trouble getting to that shot and changing it. Like the next game, Klingon can change a lot of shots. And we'll talk about that, but like he can change a lot of the game. Edey changes shots, but he doesn't change you if you go through his chest, which is what DJ Burns does.
And it's funny too, like you see and you hear how big Zach Edey is, but it didn't really come to full scope or full effect for me until I saw him cut down the nets without the ladder. And I was like, okay, yeah, he really is that big. Purdue, a 9-point favorite against NC State in that game. UConn, a 12-point favorite against Alabama. What makes this UConn team so elite, and are they poised for being the first team since Florida to go back-to-back national championships? Their most narrow victory so far in this tournament, Coach, by 17 points.
Well, they've got incredible speed. They throw the ball ahead. They share the ball, but it all comes down to the accuracy of their passing. I've said for months that they are, in my opinion, watching it as much as I do, they're the best passing team in college basketball. And with that being said, they're also the most willing passing team. And what they've done is they've taken, you can see the improvement in their team when you look at Steph Castle. He was a point guard in high school, obviously going to be a high pick in this draft whenever he decides to come out. He has absolutely learned how to move without the ball in that offense. He doesn't need the ball to impact the game. And that says a lot because that's their team. That's Cam Spencer. That's Alex Caravan. They've got two big. Samson Johnson went 5 for 6 the other day in the game. Donovan Klingon is as good in the country as there is at not only blocking the shot, but changing your view if you can actually get the shot off, which is why I think it's going to be such a factor because Alabama's built on layups and threes and free throws. Very, very few mid-range type pull-ups. I don't think Alabama's going to be able to get those layups when Klingon is in the game because Mark Shears gets deep threes. He's got 30-foot range, and rightfully so. Does an unbelievable job in the two-man game. I love the Brunson comparison, but I don't think he's going to get those layups. And Alabama, when Alabama's at their best, they're getting a bunch of layups too. I know they hit 16 threes the other night, but you also got to remember Clemson makes their free throws. They went 8 of 16 on the line, and P.J. Hall fouled out. Alabama couldn't guard Clemson inside. You know, the switching, things like that, getting back to why Connecticut's so good. They'll take advantage of those things. They'll take advantage of the switches and the matchups. And they're really good at that.
Coach Crean, you're awesome. Thanks again for joining us.
I love it. Got to learn something every time, Coach. Thank you so much.
Yeah, the insight's unbelievable. He's been joining us every step of the way in the tournament. Just great nuggets. Follow him on X at Tom Crean, checking out all of the great work on ESPN. We're going to hit the break.
Catch a special edition of Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard today at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific from the DraftKings Sportsbook at TPC Scottsdale. They'll talk with the VEASAN betting experts and special guests to give you a final look at how to bet the Final Four. Watch the show live today at 3 Eastern and become a VEASAN Pro subscriber to gain access to our betting tools, picks sent to your inbox daily, and betting splits to help you gain an edge. Just head to VEASAN.com/pro. That's VSIN.com/pro.
Doors take us to summers away or winter adventures and afternoon getaways. Your dedicated Fidelity advisor can help you open those doors by working with you on a comprehensive plan to help you reach your wealth's full potential. because doors were meant to be opened. Visit fidelity.com/wealth. Investment minimum supply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
If you didn't catch Follow the Money, here's
most of my family, they never graduated high school, so I'm trying to break that barrier. My daughter, Brooklyn, was also a motivation for me to go back to school. Every day after work, went straight to school, and it paid off.
At age 26, Kareem finished his high school diploma.
I could not have done it alone. I see the future is really bright for me.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
What if I told you that a tornado was going to happen tomorrow, right where you live? That it would touch down at exactly 3:17 p.m., and I told you the exact path it would take. You would, of course, prepare. You would talk with your loved ones, and you'd make a plan today. It's true, I can't tell you a tornado will strike tomorrow, but shouldn't you have a plan anyway? Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Dear John, I'm leaving. Uncontrolled high blood pressure is serious, and I can quit whenever I want. Why can't we get back to when you checked on me? I don't want to leave, but remember, when I quit, you quit. Sincerely, your heart.
Listen to your heart and don't let it quit on you. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range today. For help keeping yours at a healthy range, text PRESSURE to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. Take one.
Behold the angry giant.
Try it again, Alberto.
Behold the angry giant.
Perfect. Good luck tonight.
Behold the angry giant.
Yay! Read me another one, Dad.
This is WWE superstar Alberto Del Rio. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to sell all your belongings and live in a commune.
These dungarees belong to all of us now, Tom.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman!
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
This is Everett Fitzhugh, the radio voice of the NHL Seattle Kraken, and you're listening to the home of the Youngstown Phantoms, Western Reserve Radio.
On VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back on the Lombardi line alongside Michael Lombardi, Stormy Bonantoni with you. Pro days for all the major draft candidates are in the books, and somebody who knows these guys intimately, sees them up close and personal throughout the process, joins us now on the Progressive Guest Line. Jim Nagy, Executive Director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, 18-year scout. And Jim, before we get into these prospects, you've been watching the NCAA tournament just like the rest of America and tweeted over the weekend, anyone else having trouble watching NC State big man DJ Burns and not thinking about him kick sliding in pass pro or getting out on polls, because it can't just be me. And we have been saying all postseason, this guy got mixed up in the sports he decided to play in college, Jim.
Yeah, Stormy, good to be on with you and Mike again. Yeah, I mean, it's a natural for a football person when you're watching basketball, and I don't watch a lot of basketball outside March Madness. So that was my first introduction to this big guy, and you know, he's nimble and he's got a soft touch, and so I'm just thinking, geez, it'd be nice to work this guy out. Now, you know, you don't know if he played high school football. I mean, when you look at the guys that have converted and been successful, like Antonio Gates was a good high school football player. You know, so you don't know that. You don't know the background. You don't know what he's like in the weight room. I mean, there's certainly things you don't know about. But you're curious. Like, let's put him through an offensive line workout or a tight end workout, and let him see if he can catch the ball. So no, that's just where a football guy's brain goes. I'm sure Mike's brain went there too. And then as soon as I posted that the other night, I And I tweeted this out today. I had 3 guys from the league hit me up. They're like, yeah, we think the same thing. We'd love to work this guy out. And then right before I jumped on, I was grabbing some lunch here down the street from our Senior Bowl offices. And I had one of the scouts that scouts that part of the country for an AFC team was like, dude, you are killing me with these DJ Burns posts, because that was my plan. Was he was hoping, his hope was that NC State got knocked out in the first round, and he was going to, and he lives there. He lives in the Research Triangle there in North Carolina. He was going to slide in and work out DJ by himself. He's like, well, you've blown that up, man. But no. So it's awesome. Again, I'm not saying the guy can play in the NFL, but I think every football person is curious, like, what would that look like?
Yeah, no question. And I mean, if he were a little bit better shape and he ran faster, you might think tight end. His hands are so damn soft. You think he'd be good. But I don't know. Lining up and getting that foot kicked out requires a lot of toughness. I don't know if those guys actually have it. And, what happens if he gets drafted or he goes over to Europe and gets guaranteed money? That can always deter you from taking the path in the NFL. But, all right, let's go back to the quarterbacks, the subject at hand. So I said on my podcast today that I think Michael Penix, when the medicals start to come out and he gets cleared up, he will move up the board a little bit because of his workout and how fast he ran. Have you heard the same thing, that Michael Penix is kind of being looked at in a different light based on the workout?
Yeah, Mike, I'll say this. When I was in Baton Rouge last week, I stayed at the same hotel as, the entire Patriots brass was there. Elliot Wolf and Gerard Mayo and Adam Peters and Dan Quinn were there. And we were all down in the lobby one night just talking about these guys. And again, I said, is Penix going in the first round or not? And it was really split. There was 3 or 4 guys that were convicted. Yeah, Jimmy's he's definitely going to go in the first. And then a couple I was like, nah, he's probably more of a second. So I think it's pretty split, Mike. I think where it comes down on Penix is that, and this, usually the medical stuff doesn't get out in the media and to the fans. But Michael's medical stuff has been so, highly publicized. I think people have just knocked him for it. I think the media's knocked him down for it. I think that the fans on Twitter have, on social media have knocked him down for it. But a clean bill of health. I was just watching him today. I went back and watched Indiana tape to see if that Indiana tape looked any different. He's such a good thrower of the football. And I've said it, and Mike, you can disagree. You worked with this man and you were really close to Al Davis. I've always said, if Al Davis were still here, he would be the Raiders' first round pick, would he not? With that vertical throwing. But
I said it on the pod today, Jim.
Yeah,
Jim, I said it on the pod today.
I love it. I love it.
If they really
go ahead, Michael.
Go ahead. Well, if they really believe that they understand the Raider, if they really believe they have the Raider tradition and understand it, Penix is the guy. Penix is the guy because Al wanted to run over routes, vertical routes, third level routes, and he wanted a quarterback who could run. And Al didn't mind left-handed quarterbacks. Some coaches mind it, right? They don't want it. Yep. Al had Kenny Stabler. He had Todd Marinovich. He doesn't mind. He didn't mind it. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they rank them.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I do think a clean medical will help him for sure.
And Jim, you mentioned being out there in Baton Rouge, so you got to see Jaden Daniels and the LSU Pro Day up close and personal. What were some of your big takeaways from him and the way that he's catapulted in so many scouts and analysts' minds over recent weeks?
Yeah, I've been watching Jaden for a long time now, so this was kind of close the book for me with Jaden. He's just an easy thrower of the football. You hear people say the ball jumps off a guy's hand. I kind of chuckle when people, that's a pretty overused term. But the ball just comes off his hand so clean with such good velocity. He struggled a little bit in the early part of the workout on a couple of deep balls he missed, but again, not a big deal. I thought it was a really good throwing session. I was actually standing with the GM, he was at Caleb Williams and JJ McCarthy's. And I said, okay, where do those 3 rank? And they were going to Drake Mays the next day. The next day, Penix and May had theirs. And his GM said McCarthy 1, Jaden 2, and Caleb Williams 3 was his rank, and he was at all 3 of those.
Oh.
Wow, that's impressive. Hey, all right, so you're at LSU's workout. Neighbors. What's your read? Would a team take Neighbors ahead of Harrison?
Ooh, You got to love that Malik did everything, right, Mike? I mean, I think you and I are probably both kind of old school. We probably got to get with this new wave of guys opting out of doing everything. And I'm not taking any shots at Marvin Harrison. I mean, and I don't think the league is really taking a hard stance over it either. But the fact that Neighbors went out there and not only did he run 140, he ran 40. A lot of guys aren't doing right now. Man, I would throw a Doonesy in there too. Like, to me, this isn't a 2-horse race. To me, I think it's a 3-horse race. I'm a huge Roma Doonesy fan. So, I think it could happen. We'll see. I mean, I do think there's going to be a run on those quarterbacks. I would love to be in the LA Chargers seat right now, Joe Ortiz in his first draft, because I think that he's going to control a lot. I think they're going to get a king's ransom for that 5th pick in Monty Austin-Ford sitting there in Arizona at 4. I mean, you know, Mike, you've been in that GM chair. I think both those guys are sitting pretty when it comes to either, stay put and take a really good wide receiver, or, trade out for one of these quarterbacks in stockpile picks. But all three of those top receivers are legit.
And Jim, because you mentioned where J.J. McCarthy ranked in that one executive that you spoke to, and where the Chargers sit at the opportunity, his former head coach and Jim Harbaugh has been ranting and raving about how J.J. McCarthy, the best pro day that I've ever seen for a quarterback. He's the top tier, top of this class, XYZ. Where does J.J. McCarthy rank in your mind? Because you have these people that view him one way is now a top 4 pick, top 2 pick in a lot of senses for some folks out there. And then others that are saying, what are we missing because we haven't gotten to see XYZ on the field during his collegiate career?
I'll start by saying Coach Harbaugh, and I love him, but he's in a perfect position right now with sitting there with Justin Herbert. So he can say these things about J.J. McCarthy, and he doesn't have to put his money where his mouth is. So this whole thing worked out perfectly for Coach Harbaugh. But no, JJ is probably the guy that I spent the least amount of time studying. I actually, when they finished up the national championship game, I reached out to Coach Harbaugh. He connected me with JJ's dad, because we tried to get him in the Senior Bowl. We could bring juniors to the game this year for the first time ever. And they just played so much. His dad was like, Jim, he's just played 15 games. I think we're good. So I didn't spend as much time. I do know, and I went to Michigan, so I have watched a lot of JJ. I'm not trying to dodge the question. He has a really elastic arm. He can throw it on the move. He's a really good athlete. I wish he would have run. I wish all these quarterbacks would have run, because again, I think Bo Nix would have run well. I think JJ would have run well. There at the Baton Rouge Pro Day. I mean, I had people in the building telling me that Jaden Daniels would have run with Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, and both those guys touched in the 4.3s. So I wish these quarterbacks would have done that. It would have been fun to see where they all came out. But no, it just feels like there's so much late buzz on him. It's not like JJ is an unknown guy. Everyone's known about JJ. This guy isn't like a Johnny come lately. So it just feels a little weird. But we'll see. I don't know if it's the Jim Harbaugh stuff or not, but those other 3 guys were kind of settled in those top 3 spots, and there's certainly been a late push for JJ.
Jim, I have 50 more questions, but we have to hit a commercial break, unfortunately. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, thanks.
Great job.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. See you, Mike.
Always enjoy getting to hear some of that insight from Jim Nagy, again, executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl. I did, Michael. I'm sorry. I know we had more, but the music comes in and it says we got to go.
I know. It just showed up quick. That was quick. I know.
Heartbreaking.
I love that he recognized Al Davis. I love that. He knew that one right there.
He was echoing all of those thoughts that you had with Michael Penix Jr. in that connection. We'll be right back.
Do you want to learn the secret to becoming a published author in a few easy steps? Here's all it takes with help from Dorrance Publishing. For over 100 years, we've assisted individuals like you to fulfill their dreams of becoming a published author. When you call right now, you'll be assigned your own personal consultant who will help you through the entire book publishing and design process. Then, your book goes into production. It gets promoted, distributed, and finally, made available where books are sold. If you've got a book idea, call Dorrance Publishing right now for a free consultation. We'll help get your great idea out of your head, on paper, printed, and sold. It's a free, easy call. We're trusted by thousands of book authors just like you. So don't wait another day. Call now.
800
800-847-1362. That's 800-847-1362. 800-487-1362.
Twitter, Instagram. We know the hashtag.
Okay, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. Socks going first, then shoes, right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops, the rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. 2 minutes twice a day, making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
This message is for all of you sitting in the passenger seat. And apologies if it gets a little uncomfortable, but how does it feel to be at the mercy of someone who thinks a random text is more important than your life? Someone who takes their eyes off the road while speeding along in a 3-ton hunk of steel. Freaky, right? Well, why not just ask them to stop? Or better yet, volunteer to text for them. It might be a little awkward, but believe me, you'll live.
Learn more at stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
We are live outside the home of Joe and Rosie Goddard, where a pretty big tickle fight broke out just minutes ago. Sources say their father instigated the laughter. Let's go inside for a comment. Apparently, they have no comment. Dads, let this be a reminder that it only takes a moment to make a moment. Call 877-4DAD-411 or visit fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear. Look for FAST. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911 immediately. Know the sudden signs. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. FeedThePig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard, so you don't need to start foraging wild berries.
I was skeptical, but these are actually pretty good.
You don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
You just need FeedThePig.org. Don't get left behind. Get tips and tools at FeedThePig.org. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
This is Everett Fitzhugh, the radio voice of the NHL Seattle Kraken. And when I want to catch up with Youngstown sports, I tune in to Western Reserve Radio, WRDB, The Scourge.
Never been a better time to have skin in the game with DraftKings Sportsbook, because right now we have a VSiN exclusive offer for new DK customers. You can earn a $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you wager, up to $2,500 in bonus bets your first 3 days on DraftKings when you use our code Lombardi. Don't wait. Download the app now. Use the code Lombardi when you sign up. That earns you a $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you wager right now. Welcome back into the Lombardi line on VSiN and DraftKings Network. Michael Lombardi and Stormy Bonantoni with you. And Michael, you got a column up on vsin.com today. I want to do a little writing spotlight. It's now or never for Trevor Lawrence. And this is a topic I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, especially this offseason. What inspired you to put this together?
Well, you know, when DraftKings released their win totals, right, and they had Jacksonville at 9.5, I'm thinking, boy, the book sees this the same way I do, that his career, you would have thought, would have taken this huge spike forward, and yet here they are. They've made all these moves in the offseason. They were a playoff team 2 years ago, but they're only at 9.5. I mean, we know the Texans, I know they went to the playoffs, but the Texans are at 10.5. And so for me, it was like, I think it was a story, Stormy, that no one's talking about. And I think it's a big story. I really do. I think it should be the story of the offseason. I know one thing, Doug Peterson knows it's the story of the offseason because either he gets him to play well or he may not be there next year. And so everybody in the league is looking at, like, where did we go wrong with Lawrence? Like, is it him? Is it the offense? What is it? And that's what prompted me to want to write it, because I was a huge, and I write this clearly in the column, I was a huge Lawrence fan coming out. I saw him early in his career, and I thought he was sensational. I thought he was the next Peyton Manning. And then as I watch him now, I fall further and further away from where I think he could go.
Yeah, you had a great quote on that. You said, but like all waiting rooms, my patience is running dangerously thin. And you started off the article talking about perceptions, Michael. You said perceptions can be powerful, often more powerful than the truth. They also prevent us from searching for the truth. And when the perceptions are standing good, no one searches for the truth. So where do you stand on Jacksonville quarterback Trevor Lawrence? And so I'll ask you, Michael, where do you stand on Trevor Lawrence at this point in his career?
I think Trevor Lawrence is a mistake-prone quarterback who doesn't play with any consistency in any part of his game. And Caleb Williams got me on to re-looking at him again, because Caleb Williams isn't very consistent either with his mechanics, his fundamentals, his footwork, his ball handling, all those things, right? And Lawrence isn't either. If you watch Lawrence, he may take his footwork, his ability to drive the ball and throw it is not as good. And so I stand in the category of that Peterson's got to change his mindset. Last year, they ranked 30th in the league in yards per attempt rushing. They were 6th in passing attempts. And I explain it in the column. It's hard to call runs that you can't get yards on. And it's hard to call pass plays when your quarterback's turnover prone and makes mistakes. But I think there's got to be a better balance. I think they've got to get the ball to their players that can really, ATN specifically, and try to minimize Lawrence's impact on the game. He's got a little bit of Dak Prescott. I think when he's throwing it 30, 33 times a game, you're going to get yourself in some trouble. You're asking him to do things at the line of scrimmage that I don't think he's really good at doing. I think he has got to be kind of grooved into it and make it very comfortable for him. I think you got to make the offense very easy for him too. I think he is not I'm going to change the protection. I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this around. No. Get up and go run it and make them feel comfortable.
Yeah, you talked a lot about the way that he takes chances with the ball and the mental mistakes, the assumptions he makes with the ball that can hurt his team more than help at times. And yes, he did surpass 4,000 yards this year. He did have 21 touchdowns despite dealing with a number of injuries. But you also look, 14 interceptions, tied for fourth most picks in the league, and an NFL high 21 total turnovers because of all the lost fumbles. I thought this was interesting, Michael. There are only 11 quarterbacks since 1978 that have turned the ball over more in their first 3 seasons. That is a list that includes a couple of Hall of Famers in Warren Moon and Peyton Manning, but it also includes guys like Blake Bortles and Mark Sanchez. So when you have Trevor Lawrence, where in that spectrum do you think he ultimately lands? Because as we talk about perceptions, he was considered that elite number 1 overall quarterback. We've talked about generational a lot today. That's how he was perceived. Yeah. So what ultimately does he become?
I think he becomes, I don't want to say this, but it becomes a guy who's got to blend in the offense, not carry the offense. The most concerning thing, Stormy, is his accuracy and his inability to get the ball down the field. I think he plays very robotic. I think he plays almost with no flow to his game. And when he does that, he doesn't hold the ball long enough. I mean, think about this. His career best yards per attempt down the field was 7.1 last year. His first year with the great Urban Meyer, he was at 6.0. I get that. I excused him as we sat in the waiting room, blame it all on Urban. The next year with Dougie, he's at 7, and this year's at 7.1. Like, he doesn't get the ball down the field. And his accuracy gets too many balls batted at the line. To go along with the fumbles, he's got 33 balls batted at the line of scrimmage in 2 years. He's a 6'6" quarterback. Like, how is this happening? You know, because this angle of his delivery, he's careless. He kind of rushes things. I think he plays like a guy that doesn't have 91 career starts. That's what drives me crazy about him. He's got 50 starts in the NFL, and he has another 41 in college football, and yet he plays as if there's no feel to him. There's no rhythm to his game, and that's a concern. And I think, to me, the patience is going to wear thin, especially in Jacksonville, where they're counting on him to to lead them. And when DraftKings said Jacksonville's a 9.5, that's you got to bet the over there. They're saying they don't believe it either. They're saying they don't believe it either.
And with that, Michael, bettors have already brought that down where it's open 9.5, but it's down to 8.5 now at this point. They're plus 240 in the AFC South after being an odds-on favorite last year, and the season obviously fell apart. What I did think was interesting going through the schedule last year too, Michael, was they were 8-3 to start the year, obviously fell off a cliff the back end. Trevor Lawrence was dealing with a litany of different injuries and was just off as a player in general. But they only won one game the rest of the way. It was against the Carolina Panthers, a game in which Trevor Lawrence did not play. So the lone game that they won the back end of the season was the CJ Beathard game. It wasn't even the Trevor Lawrence one. And that's why I hate to use this example because I'm a 49ers fan and keep going back to it. But we talk so much about it's not where you're drafted, but how you play. Like Brock Purdy, obviously Mr. Irrelevant. It's not about where he was drafted, it's where he plays. And it's the same thing just on the opposite end for Trevor.
No question. And the game that they won against Carolina, they ran the ball for 155 yards in that game. But you hit the nail on the head. So one thing you always want to look at a quarterback is what his third down numbers are. This is where J.J. McCarthy has moved himself up in the draft. He's good on third down. Whereas when you look at Trevor Lawrence, the game's moving so fast, he's not good. But where it really worries you the most, Stormy, is on first down. Where that is, Brock Purdy averages 10.3 yards per attempt on first down. Whereas Trevor Lawrence is at 7.3. It's the highest number. He's thrown 18 of his 39 interceptions on second down. Like, this guy just doesn't, there's no down that he's really comfortable within. So you say, well, run a play action pass scheme. Well, he's not great on first down. And they got him in shotgun all the time, and I'm not sure that does them a lot of good. I just think, to me, who have they beaten? I know they beat Buffalo over and overseas, right? I know that was one of their signature wins. But, I mean, when the Chiefs came to town, they couldn't move the football. They scored 9 points. When the 49ers came to town, they scored 3 points. If you have an elite quarterback, you're scoring 12 points in those two games, please. And you have an offensive coach who's supposed to be a quarterback guru. Like, where are we going here? And nobody talks about it. Like, he's just the first pick overall and everything's going to be fine. Meanwhile, the rest of the draft has fallen out. Like, he's closer to them than he is closer to being the Peyton Mannings or the Warren Moons that you cited.
Yeah, and I know another thing you talk about in the article is the way that his collegiate career went. 90 touchdowns, 17 picks, 39-3, national championship MVP. And you said past performance is the best indicator of future achievement, but those who believe Lawrence will click are relying on the past from Clemson, not in Jacksonville. And I know he got off to a rough start with Urban Meyer, had a Pro Bowl season after that, although I don't know how much stock we put into that honor these days. And then it fell back off again this season. So you're right, there are a lot of questions about him. And it does feel like it's now or never for Trevor Lawrence because contractually entering the fourth year with a $25 million option waiting after the season, you called it in the article, a defining moment.
It is. And when you go back and look at their season, who did they beat that's any good? Right? I mean, they got killed by Houston at home in that game, right? When the Houston week 3,
yeah, 37-17.
They beat the Colts twice. All right. So they came back and beat Houston in Houston, but I think Houston was playing a backup quarterback at that time. I think Stroud was hurt. But who have they beat that's any good? I mean, Cincinnati with the backup. I mean, Cincinnati they scored 31 on Cincinnati. Cincinnati wasn't a good team last year. I just think, to me, it's a little bit of our perception of him and where he stands as opposed to how he's played.
No question about it. Great stuff. That's it for us today. But if you missed any of the program, remember you can download the Lombardi Line in podcast form wherever you get your podcast.
Is switching your wireless service to Total by Verizon easy?
Totalmente.
And you get unlimited 5G data, $25 a line for 4 lines on the unlimited plan at an amazing price with no contracts. Should you switch to Total by Verizon? Definitely.
Totalmente.
Find a store or switch suavemente at totalbyverizon.com. Monthly rate when you activate without a pay plus taxes and fees. Discount begins the month after you enroll. Additional terms apply. See website for data management practices.
The good folks at Wendy's have a revolutionary new product for you. Introducing the new Orange Dreamsicle Frosty. It's like a time machine that takes you all the way back to now, the year 2024. It's the classic creamy, orangey flavor you remember. Dare I say, it's new-timey. It's the flavor you grew up with, just all grown up. Head over to your local Wendy's establishment and get yours while supplies last. The new Orange Dreamsicle Frosty. Here for the now, for now.
Limited time only. Participating Wendy's.
It's UConn's world, and we're just living in it. So what's that mean for Alabama in the Final Four?
Keyboard Cat, Hamilton the Pug, and Toast Meets World. These are some of the internet's most beloved pets. And they all have one thing in common. Their stories started in a shelter. Start your story. Adopt a dog or cat today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Training that pet to play the keyboard, that's optional. Start a story. Adopt a shelter or rescue pet today. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Okay, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. So mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. Socks going first, then shoes, right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops, the rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. 2 minutes twice a day, making sure they brush their teeth is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. Visit 2min2x.org to find out more. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear. Look for FAST. F. Face drooping. A. Arm weakness. S. Speech difficulty. T. Time to call 911 immediately. Know the sudden signs. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The storks are bringing me a baby brother. We can do this together.
All right, let's go.
Storks know how to keep kids safe. Do you?
What?
Oh my gosh, you don't know.
I know.
You don't. Oh man, you laugh when you're uncomfortable.
No. Making sure your child is in the right car seat is one of the steps to safer travel.
I will rock this.
You will rock this.
To know for sure that your child is in the right car seat for their age and size, visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat.
Cool. Very cool.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
The Mahoning Valley's leader for golf, Milk Creek Golf Course, is now booking tee times for 2024. We offer stay and play opportunities available with 9 area hotel partners. For more information, visit our website at millcreekmetroparks.org. Also, look for new, exciting opportunities coming soon, including an indoor player development center with Trackman, an indoor Callaway Club Fitting Center, and an Odyssey Fitting Studio in 2024. Follow us on Facebook at Milk Creek Golf Course or call 330-740-7112.
You're listening to WRDB, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, Youngstown, Warren, Salem, and around the world.
And Mike Samich on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Saturday edition of The Handle here on VSiN and DraftKings Network. Matt Brown, Mike Samich coming to you as always, proudly presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Mike, we have a very busy day in sports. It's kind of like last weekend where we said it snuck up on us a little bit, where you're sitting there on a Saturday and you don't really realize exactly how busy everything is in the sports world. And then you start doing some prep for the show and you start looking for some bets that you want to make. And you realize that maybe today might even be overwhelming when it comes to things that you could do, especially if we start to look forward to next week, in which we got the Masters coming up. Maybe you're starting to look into that as well. So a really, really good Saturday here on The Handle.
It really is. You jump into it and you're like, okay, well, we got the Final Four. What else is going on? And then you realize, well, baseball's in full swing. We've got a bunch of good hockey games. We're not even really going to get to the NBA. There's a ton of NBA action today as well. And then, of course, we got to talk about the ponies. We got 3 Kentucky Derby preps as well, Matt. So really busy day all over the place here. That's not even mentioning UFC, which I know you want to talk about as well.
Yeah, then we'll talk a little bit about UFC a little bit later in all of this. But, listen, every single day when we walk in here, we have 5 things that we are just dying to bet on. So let's get right to it.
All right, classic. High five. It's time for the Handles High Five. High five. All right. Number 1.
So as we know, Mike, the Final Four rolls on. Games today, North Carolina State, Purdue, coming to you about 6:10 Eastern. And then we're going to get Alabama and UConn following that. As we sit right now over at DraftKings, it is a 9-point spread in favor of Purdue, 146 on the total. If you think NC State continues this Cinderella run, plus 340 on the money line. And then our evening game, Alabama and UConn, is currently 11.5 in favor of UConn. 160.5 is your total. If you think Alabama pulls the upset here over what looks to be just an absolute truck in UConn, you can get 5-1 over at DraftKings right now, plus 500. Mike, we will certainly get into these much, much more in the next segment where we really get in there and break things down. But all things said, there are some interesting storylines as we head into this. You have the Cinderella story of North Carolina State. You have the Zach Edey thing going on with Purdue. You have Alabama that is so incredibly high variance and known as a football school and now maybe a basketball school. And then, as I just mentioned, UConn being the absolute truck that they have been so far throughout the tournament. So even though we don't have some of the, name brand schools here in the Final Four that we've, a lot of people household names, I do think that this is some pretty good storyline stuff going on here.
It is. We don't have the blue bloods that we've seen in past years. There's no Duke, there's no UNC, so no teams like that. But however, this UConn team you mentioned, they've been phenomenal. Won 10 straight games by 13 plus points, covered all of them in the last 2 years in the tournament. They're installed as an 11.5, 12-point favorite today. I can't remember, Matt, when you've had these big of favorites in both of the semifinal games. And I don't think it's just an open and shut case in both of them. I am excited to bet both of these games. Like you said, we'll get more into that more in the second segment, but the whistle is going to be a storyline as well. We saw that be a big issue in Purdue, Tennessee. We'll see what happens this early game with NC State and Purdue there.
Yeah, it was short. We came in last week. I had a ticket and a dream, Mike, and then it was gone. No longer, no sweat really for me here in this one as far as any sort of futures tickets or anything like that. So yeah, it's just individual games for me from here on out. I can't remember if you had anything left in the futures market or not.
No, I didn't play anyone to win the tournament just because of UConn. I had a couple Final Four futures headed into last Sunday. Both of those went up in flames, but at least we were able to cover bet them a little bit. That was the one fortunate part, but it's tough to play these futures. We talked about it last week with UConn in the tournament and them being such big favorites. It's hard to monetize tickets. So if you're sitting there and you've got an Alabama to win it all ticket, you got to lay a ton of juice with UConn just to try and cover back your original investment. So it makes it hard to get really excited about the future prices if you liked UConn in the tournament.
Yeah, it was a bet and pray for me last week, and it didn't pan out. So my 175-1, even though my team got to the Elite Eight, won me $0. I got absolutely $0 out of that one. Let's keep it rolling.
Number 2.
It is, listen, yes, there's a golf tournament going on right now. And it is interesting from a betting perspective, mainly because we're seeing about stuff for next week as we head into the Masters. But we do have the Valero that's going on right now. We will also get into some Masters talk as we get going here as well, Mike, because this is the time of year where I think, the casual bettor who maybe hasn't even pushed the golf button on their app is going to push the golf button and going to want to know what's going on next week over in Augusta. And so we'll talk a little bit about the Valero and what maybe this can mean for down the line, but we'll certainly get into some Master talk as well today.
Yeah, I'm guilty of being that casual bettor. I bet the 4 majors, and occasionally I'll throw something in when I listen to your podcast, Matt, but not a huge golf bettor here. I have started the Masters research. I got 2 guys I want to bounce off you, see if you think that they are good or bad bets at the current prices. So looking forward to getting in and talking about that.
Hey, I've only got Akshay Bhatia as a 5-stroke leader heading into round 3 today. What can go wrong? This is what we say every single week. So yet another 36-hole leader for me, and just I'm sure someone's going to run him down because that's what's happened so far this golf season. I have not been able to get these tickets on.
At least with a 5-stroke lead, if you go into Sunday, if you can hold this lead and keep it up there, you can bet the no, right? There's a way to monetize that ticket. So this is a better situation when there are 7 guys within 2 strokes of the lead, and you got to hope that everything plays out perfectly on a Saturday.
Yeah, I just need him to at least have a 3-stroke lead heading into tomorrow, and then I can make sure to get some money here on this one. But you know what? The way this golf season's gone so far, Mike, I bet you he ends up tied or something like that heading into tomorrow, making this thing incredibly difficult. Let's keep it going.
Number 3.
You mentioned some UFC, and it's kind of like golf, right? Like there is, yes, the Valero's going right now, but we'll talk a little bit about the Valero, but we'll really kind of hone in on the Masters. Well, same deal here whenever Jimmy Smith joins us a little bit later. There is a UFC card today, probably going to get lost in the shuffle with everything that's going on in the sports world. Not going to lie. This is not going to draw very good numbers, this UFC card, but really we'll talk about UFC 300, which is next week. We'll try to get into that a little bit more with Jimmy and see what he thinks about that. Really, really, really good card. So yes, we will talk UFC Fight Night. We will talk about any bets that maybe you want to make on the card today. Not likely to be one that many casual fans are going to be tuning into, Mike. So we'll kind of focus on UFC 300 with Jimmy.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I'm interested to see if he thinks there's going to be any steam chasing in the UFC 300 as well. We've seen some of these prices come out. We'll be interested to see if he believes any of them are going to move, and that'll make him a little more interested in betting. We've talked about UFC quite a bit on the show, and one thing that I've noticed is you see a $1 change, $1.50 change in some of these lines, and a fighter that you're not expecting to back, all of a sudden you're backing because the steam went the other way. So excited to talk about, what he expects here with a full week out from these fights. We're already seeing some lines available.
Yeah, looking at the card tonight, co-main and main have some pretty substantial favorites. If we look at the co-main, Alex Hernandez is minus 185 over Damon Jackson. And then in the main event, you have Brendan Allen, who is a big minus 238 favorite over Chris Curtis in this one. So maybe there is a way to get into the alt markets and make a bet. Maybe if you don't want to lay these big numbers like we see right now. So we will get into that. Let's keep going.
Number 4.
You mentioned we're not going to talk a ton about NBA, but we're going to have Zach Graham on the program who will talk a ton about NBA for us today as we head down the home stretch in the NBA season, Mike. And there are bets still to be made. These games all do still count. And actually, interestingly enough, we do have some real drama as we head in towards the end of the season here.
Yeah, we do. I mean, especially out in the West right now. Really, the only thing that's decided is the Clippers are going to be the 4 most likely. Every other position, 1 through 10, still up for grabs out there in the West. And I'm excited to talk about this Bucks team as well, which is lost 3 straight games as 10-plus point favorites to lottery teams. The hiring of Doc Rivers really not gone the way the Bucks has hoped it would have. So you now have the Celtics installed as a massive favorite there in the Eastern Conference. Excited to see if he thinks that this Bucks team, which has a boatload of talent, going to be able to turn around and flip the switch quickly here going into the playoffs.
Yeah, as you mentioned, no drama over in the East. Boston Celtics 61-16, a full 14 games clear of that Bucks team. But you go down into the West, and this will be right up to it. The Timberwolves 53-24, the Nuggets 53-24. The Thunder are 52-25. And that's just at the top. The other part of this is the play-in scenario in which you look right now where the Suns are 46-31. Actually, let's start with the Mavericks, who are 47-30. Suns are 46-31. That is your 5th and 6th spots into the automatic qualifiers. Now you go into the play-in tournament in which the Pelicans are only a game back at 45-32. You only got a couple games back for the Kings and the Lakers sitting there at 44-33. And then you have the Warriors who are holding down that final spot sitting there at 42-35. A few games clear of the Rockets, but who knows? Weirder things certainly can happen. But I think the main story here, Mike, is when you look at this is if things held as they are right now, we will have playoffs that will either not have Zion Williamson or LeBron or Steph Curry or something, because one of those teams is not going to make it through as we have the play-in tournament.
It's wild to look at that plane and the idea that, it could be Devin Booker, it could be Kevin Durant, it could be Luka Doncic, it could be Kyrie Irving that ends up in that play-in tournament as well. You look at the Pelicans who've been playing some very good basketball. It's not a team anyone really wants to face. Even look at the Kings, who were competing for the 1 seed in the West to the last couple weeks of the season last year, a team with a ton of talent. They need Malik Monk back right now. But the fact that you'd have LeBron versus Steph just to make the game, to make the playoffs at this point. Wild to think about. We'll see if either the Lakers or the Warriors are able to close a little bit of ground so they're both able to get in. But you're going to miss some stars in the NBA playoff in the West because of how good that conference is and because of how well OKC and Minnesota have played toward the top.
Let's wrap it up.
Number 5.
As you mentioned at the top here, Mike, not 1, not 2, but 3 big races in your world that we will get into today. But these are all 3 races in the horse racing world. If you're familiar, these are all going to ring a bell for you. And if not, hey, Mike's going to bring it to you.
Yeah, we are. We got the Wood from Aqueduct. We got the Santa Anita Derby from Santa Anita and the Bluegrass from Keeneland. Absolutely love the Keeneland meet. It's one of the boutique meets here. It's a smaller track, absolutely beautiful, middle of Kentucky, sitting in Lexington. Can't wait to talk about these 3 races. Unfortunately, Encino scratched out of the Bluegrass. That was a bummer this morning, but still a ton to talk about.
When we come back, as we said, we're going to really get into the weeds with these 2 Final Four games. What bets are in our account? What angles are we looking at? And honestly, what do we think we might see a little bit further down the line? That's also a long tease here because they already have lines out for potential championship games as well. It's a handle here on a Saturday.
The thrill and excitement of March Mania is here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, one of America's top-rated sportsbook apps, is giving new customers a shot to turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets with any college basketball bet. New customers can bet $5 to get $150 instantly in bonus bets, only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code VEGAS. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/bball for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, a Pfizer vaccine.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk